Hey everybody, how we doing? Was just doubling back. I told everyone that I wanted to give them a little update on what I got from a response from the Daily Wire and everything that they were talking about when they messaged me back. I said they sent me a book, Speechless by Michael Nolan. I referenced it wrong. I want to make sure to get all that out there. Controlling words and controlling minds. And I had referenced earlier that all of these great people have actually spoke upon this book, like Candace Owens, Senator Ted Cruz, Ben Shapiro, Ann Coulter, Charlie Kirk. Those are a few of my favorites. Andrew Klavan, who's also on the Daily Wire. But I basically reached out to them, wondering if they could help me with this platform and kind of navigating YouTube and how to pursue it. And they did reach back to me, sent me this book, and a short response basically saying they like what we're doing. They like some of the content that we're covering. They like that we are being careful about how we pursue this platform, so we're not getting ourselves in trouble and taking off of it immediately. So that's the first few things they acknowledged. I'm bracing in a response. I just want to make sure it's done properly. And I don't know, more than anything, I just want to make sure I cover all the grounds when it comes to, responding respectfully and letting them know that I appreciate them even responding to me, because I did realize it wasn't anybody significant that reached back to me in the email. It was probably an intern or somebody that worked for them. It wasn't a big name, but at the same time, it wasn't a robo response. So to me, and them sending me a $40 book, it was actually certified and signed by by Michael Knowles himself. So yeah, there's definitely some significance to that when it comes to the way I received it, and it's honestly the first gift our channel has received. So I want to acknowledge that and make sure everybody knows that we got that and that we appreciate them reaching out. But I'm jumping on tonight to try to close some grounds. I know we have a lot of fans that have been reaching out in the Philippines, a little bit of everywhere. Oh, and if you hear anything in the background, we also have a lingering guest that
I had to work, but my ghost is still here.
The Pen of Perspective is always looking on. Hi, Mud Rabbit. Glad you're back.
Hey, Mud Rabbit.
And so I'm just going to be kind of on here taking questions. We're going to let other people in. We have the stream link shared in the description this time. So I don't always do this, but when I do, I definitely make sure to reach out and let everybody get a chance to jump in, ask any questions. As long as they're YouTube appropriate, we can jump into them, and we just kind of dabble on every topic. Sounds like we did get something in stone about Terry getting to do a show with us soon. So Terry's going to do a show with us. I just got connected to him on my other social medias, and he's got pictures. So this is just going to be kind of an out there reference. If anybody knows anything about wrestling, Jerry the King Lawler had a match that Terry was the referee for. Al Snow, who is also a wrestler that I like, had a picture with Terry also being the referee. And there's a lot of topics we're going to end up getting into. And then he's also got sounds like he's getting ready to go on a tour soon working. So we're going to divulge into all of those topics soon, because I'm a big professional wrestling fan, which is just kind of rare in the fact that I was an actual high school and dabbled in college wrestling a little bit, and then also was coaching for a while. And most people don't think of fans of professional wrestling to also be a fan of quote unquote real wrestling. And so there's definitely a balance to that. But that's basically what we're going to be on tonight, talking about, just hanging out, taking everybody's questions. If anybody has one, feel free to jump in. Michael's hanging out, and we'll probably be divulging in a few topics as we get into them as well. But he's got some work to do before he jumps in too far. So I hope he's getting that work done at the same time. I know he had a lot of translations to do tonight. But
I don't know if I'll be able to get it done, but we're here.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate you coming back, Mud Rabbit. Mud Rabbit said, hi, Michael. I want to make sure you saw that.
Thank you very much, Mud Rabbit, for always accompanying us. And congratulations on Noel's book. How many pages does that thing have?
Oh, God. Get past the notes in the index. A lot of notes from other people. A lot of notes covering all of the chapters that he covers. 302 pages.
Well, okay. I was going to ask you to scan them and send them to me. That's too fucking many then. All right.
But yeah. Just to give a little a coverage, I will read some of the quotes from the people that referenced this book and talked about how great it was. Speechless. And this is the praise is for Speechless. Every single American needs to read Michael Knowles' Speechless. I don't mean read it eventually. I mean stop what you're doing and pick up this book by Candace Owens. Michael Knowles is one of the most important conservative leaders of his generation. Speechless is the most important book on free speech in decades. Read it. That was Senator Ted Cruz. Michael Knowles is a rare combination, the conservative who understands the roots of his opponents' thoughts and the fighters who understand the necessity for tactical aggression. That's from Ben Shapiro. Magnificent, like nothing you've ever read. Tough love for hapless right-wingers, for fortifying our culture to the radical left by Ann Coulter. And Michael Knowles is a national.
A bit rough.
What was that?
Ann Coulter's a bit rough.
Yeah, she's a little rough on the edges sometimes. Yeah, Tiffany, we're live again. I was commenting on the shout out that we basically got from the Daily Wire, and they actually sent me a book because I reached out to them and wanted to let everybody know that we had received it, and they had actually sent a message to me and going to be in response to them and maybe setting up something with them in the future.
A book is different than setting something up with them in the future. Hopefully it will. But.
No, exactly. I don't think because they sent me a book and said that they were that they liked what we were doing as an invitation for an interview, but I do think the grounds are there that they do like some of the content that we're doing, the platform that we're doing it on, and if they ever, honestly, if I could ever have a conversation with some of the gentlemen that work there, that would be an honor in its own. I
would love it as well, gentlemen or women as well. There are lots of, I mean, it's an absolutely great platform that I've recently discovered. They were a little bit too conservative for my views, but lately I've become a little bit more conservative than I ever was before. You hadn't noticed that, right?
I might have noticed slightly. Tiffany's back. Hope she's feeling better. Let's see. She said, I'm feeling better. She's saying hi to everybody. Thank you.
Hey, Tiffany, nice to have you back, and glad that you guys are well enough to be able to be back. So thank you.
And then I was just going to say the last one. Knowles has written an insightful and gripping deconstruction of the mind prison called Political Correctness. This is a must read, and that's by Andrew Klavan. These are just a few of the people that have read Michael Knowles' book Speechless, and the book that the Daily Wire sent me. So yeah, I'm probably 2 chapters in right now. I like it. I think it's more common sense than people would think it is, but I don't know. I don't think common sense is too common these days.
About to say the same damn thing.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a balance to that. But we've got a couple new viewers now, so if anybody is wondering, I can share the StreamYard link in the description again. If anybody wants to join in, we're kind of I'm just on here taking all questions and letting anybody join in. We're covering all topics tonight. Nothing specific. Oh, we're glad you're here as well, Tiffany. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, are you going to talk about? Well, no, we're going to focus on after all the book Speechless. So, in the 2 chapters that you read about Speechless, what have you learned so far in those 2 chapters?
I wouldn't say I'd learned anything. I would say the first 2 chapters kind of cover the public's depiction of what freedom of speech is. And
What would that be?
And it basically just covers the idea of what they consider freedom of speech to be, because a lot of people have a misconception whether it's like a call to action, freedom of speech, or what lines those speech I don't know what you call it, attributes fall into, because basically you could find yourself in a lot of different situations. You could find yourself thinking you're practicing freedom of speech and then actually doing a call to action and getting arrested for it in the U.S., which a lot of people don't know about.
Exactly. Okay, hold on a minute. Right there. Now, sorry. Remind me. Is freedom of speech the 18th Amendment, the 25th Amendment? Is it the Second Amendment? Which amendment is freedom of speech placed under?
I believe it's either the first or the second.
The second's important, but freedom of speech, along with freedom of religion, happened to be the First Amendment to the Constitution, which meant that they kind of thought it was kind of fucking important.
Yeah, like shouting fire in a crowded theater. That would be a call to action, which isn't covered under freedom of speech.
But see, there's that call to action is not shouting fire. Shouting fire in a crowded theater is in stoking panic in a situation and creating.
And that's a call to action that would basically arise in others being injured.
Call to action is what they're blaming Trump for on that particular day at the beginning of the year. But that also wasn't it. And that, look, there's certain things that we have people in the 1960s and the 1970s that were having call. We had people back in 2016 that were having calls to action. Okay, and that is all defended under freedom of speech. What we can't do is create a general panic and create something.
The reason I don't think
a lot of people
the event that you're talking about, the reason I don't think that was a call to action is because of the distance it takes to walk across DC.
Plus the fact that he mentioned peaceful. Okay, our voices need to be heard.
That alone is one thing, but for people to make this assumption that these people walked 6 miles plus by the time that he was done talking, and by the time the insurrection,
they were already there. It was already planned. They had put the pipe bombs there the day beforehand. But that's not the point. The point
I don't know if anybody put pipe bombs anywhere. Come on.
Actually,
that's all speculation, of course.
No, it's not. That's actually, you can find that online. Anyway, what I wanted to mention
was to see the evidence before I could.
I've seen the video evidence of them, and it was on like Channel 4, NBC News and stuff, wherever it was. But what I wanted to mention, I saw a video today on And We Know. It's one of the news channels that I like to follow. He's an ex-Marine, and he's really gung-ho and that sort of thing. But one of the videos that he put in his hour.
Who are you talking about? Huh? Do I know who you're talking about?
And We Know. It's a channel on Rumble. I don't think he's on YouTube. It's along with a bunch of channels that were booted off of YouTube, which is how I found Rumble. Because, for example, Red Pill 78 and X22 and SGT Report were ones that I watched, and they got booted off immediately. So what he played a video today. I don't know where this was, but it was people in white masks with white clothes. You couldn't tell who was who or anything, and they were just simply holding up signs and walking, marching to like taking 2 steps forward and then stopping for like 5 seconds, taking another 2 steps forward, and everybody takes 2 steps forward. Okay, and so it's like they're marching, but it's not constant. It's just couple and go, couple and go. And so they're moving through the neighborhoods. Okay. And they're not even making their voices heard. They're simply holding up signs. Don't think. Watch television. Do as you're told. And so forth and so on. Signs that tell you that it is a protest, because they don't agree with any things that they're saying there. They are saying that that is what the system wants from you. And they were protesting exactly that. They are not destroying anything. They are not making a lot of noise. They are not disturbing anybody. They are simply walking down the street calmly, progressively, with one intention. Okay, so they.
Do you think that started with like the events that happened in Tiananmen Square and things like that in China, where we actually where we developed like the tank girl and stuff like that, where there was actually
a guy. It wasn't a tank girl. It was a guy that stood up and held up.
Oh, you're talking about the chain man with the bags? There's more than one situation, but that was the one that got publicized.
But anyway, you were that happened.
But I'm just saying,
'89, and I remember when it happened, and it was incredible. And if they had number 2, they would, according to the interview that Mr. Poole did with Lily for Freedom, if they had the freedoms that we have here, Tiananmen wouldn't have happened. The problem is that they are trying to recreate Tiananmen here. The same situations that happened in the Bolshevik Revolution. And what she is trying to tell us is that the most memorable and recent Marxist revolution happened, and she witnessed it and knows the outcome to it. So she is warning us of what she's already lived through. Now, I could warn you about the same damn thing because I've read all about it, but then again, I'm not native Chinese, and my word isn't worth as much as what hers is. And she is telling people, be careful, because the exact same language that is using right now, that is being used right now to divide, is exactly what they did back then to divide. The thing was also used by the brown shirts, and I'm sure there are many references that, and it is extremely effective. The peer pressure is something that we see right now. Many people are doing something that they normally wouldn't want to or need to do, but they're doing it because others around them are pressuring them to do it. That peer pressure is exactly what autocratic and dictatorial governments use. You see that with the red shirts in Venezuela. I mean, if there was somebody who didn't agree with Maduro, and he was a parliamentarian, he was in government, and they went to his children's high school, and the kids around that kid, and they wore red shirts because their parents were red shirts and definitely in favor of the government of Caracas, and they would intimidate and bully the children until the government official decided that his position was too tenuous, and he would have to change his vote to something more amenable. And that is how they maintain control. And when Maduro before Maduro, he took over for Chavez. Whenever Chavez actually decided to do public vote on something that he wanted to implement, he lost and he didn't like it. And so he asked certain enterprises to develop a system that would allow him to ensure that he would be able to be justified in a public vote. And at that time, they created a counting system. Like Stalin said, I don't care who votes, I care who counts the votes. And so from that point forward, Hugo Chavez had 97, 98% approval rating for the majority of things that he did. And subsequently, 15, 20 years after he did that, his people are starving to death. And technically, the average height of Venezuelans has been reduced by at least 2 centimeters because they don't have enough nutrition to grow. That is what the United States must choose now. Do you want to be Venezuela? Then go ahead and continue listening to the siren song of the Marxist fucking chant. That history's already been written many times, but one of the best implementers of that, the ones who are in control of the most populous nation on the planet, those in that nation are good people. I enjoy their culture, which is more than 3,000 years old. This movement was able to destroy a culture that was 3,000 years old. There's nothing left of it. The only thing you have is the party, and that is all that matters, and that is all that you must respect. Most widely, you're talking about Noel's book, and I hope it sells well. The most widely sold book on the planet is the one that I choose to read, and it tells us about these things. And that book cannot be sold in that particular nation without changing out certain words and putting in the name of the founder, and in other places the name of the party, because they have to make sure that you only get the message that they want you to get.
Well, so with going with just what you said, with them wanting you to get the message that they want you to get, do you think there's some significance to the fact that whenever I go to a hotel, there's only one book I'm going to find in the drawer? Do you think it's weird that I will never find another book? And that the fact that books, maybe the Holiday Inn has just got it all figured out, and they know that Christianity is the right religion, and that's why they keep a Bible in the drawer for me. I'm curious to why these names and these big companies also carry on this practice of doing this, but no other books have ever made it onto that kind of a platform, at least in the U.S. I don't know if it does operate differently in other countries.
Well, you're talking about something that was implemented, 70 years ago? I mean, and that's something that was done by the church itself. They wanted to be able to help people, and there was an integrator of Howard Johnson's that was part of that. And he said, "Yeah, we'll put the Gideon Bible in there. It's not the entire Bible. It's not the King James version of the Bible. Whenever it's usually the Gideon Bible. Now that can be."
Well, why don't we have the Gideon version of the Quran in there, or the Torah, or anything?
Because they don't fucking care about spreading the word peacefully, and they want to know who they're telling it to, if they accept it or not. And if they don't accept it, they fucking cut their head off, because that's their right within their religion. That's just, there are different ways of controlling. They're not interested in really spreading specifically a word. Just let it be there. If you want to read it, it's great. If you don't want to read it, that's okay too. Leave it there for the next guy. I remember a joke one time that the guy said, "Oh yeah, I was feeling bad one day, and I was there in the hotel room, and there was this Gideon Bible there in a drawer. So I pulled it out and I started reading it, but I was only there for a day, and so I left and I took the book with me because it was such a good book. I kept reading it and I kept reading it." Well, they should have put Deuteronomy in the beginning. I mean, the 10 Commandments tell me don't steal. I got there like 3 weeks later.
If we're okay with that version of the Gideon Bible being placed in there, would be okay if the Gideon version of the Satanic Bible or any other Bible was to be placed into people's common stay for regular reading? Would that be okay, or would we think of that?
Would they be willing to pay for it? What incentive?
You don't pay for it. I mean, that's one of those things that's just thrown into your room.
Let me ask you a question. Which hotel room doesn't have cable And are there any hotel rooms that you know of that don't have CNN?
No, but I bet you could seek them out. I bet
Who's
you
to
could seek
say
out.
that that's not the modern version of the old printed word? They're still programming you with
I feel
their
like you could
message.
seek out a bed and breakfast or something like that you could stay at that wouldn't have television in it.
Yeah, and I'm sure they won't have a Gideon Bible next to your drawer either.
They might. They might.
They might have
There's
cable.
still a chance. There's still a chance.
I doubt it, because that was a
Even
practice that was
without
done
cable, I can
last
still
century.
see.
I don't
but-
see new. I mean, if I go to a hotel now, I guarantee you I'm not going to find a Bible in the dresser drawer. That doesn't happen nowadays. That's something from last century. That's something when the country really was a Christian country. And they wanted be people to have the benefit of access to the word when they aren't at home and their Bible was at home. But they're used to letting the Spirit guide them to what, because it's more than 5,000 pages. How are you going to know what you let the Spirit guide you? And whenever it falls, I mean, He's talking to you. It is the living word. And so we want to be able to be close to the Father. We want to listen to the Father. And what we do is we read His words so that we can listen to Him.
Going with what Rabbit just said, I also think we still have these things still occurring. I mean, I don't know, but like my daughter doesn't reference the Pledge of Allegiance very much.
Oh, I remember the Pledge of Allegiance. Hell no, they don't do that anymore.
She doesn't reference it very much. And I remember even when I was in school, kids had the opportunity to sit down during the Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
And to read,
the rest. You know the thing.
Stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Don't reference it if you can't say it all. Come on.
Hey, I'm pulling a Biden, man. Sorry. You know the thing.
And
you know the thing. You know the thing. I like strawberry. I like chocolate ice cream.
But yeah, no,
God, I don't know why he referenced that.
But I also do think our country was developed on a division between religion and state, and I do think that is significant when you're talking. Why is it significant? Because in a democracy, the majority religion is the one that is going to be taught to the children.
No. See, that's exactly what. Hold on.
That's why I want that separation.
Let's see. There are two things that really. There was a Portuguese professor that Junior put me into.
Side note: you're not going to get any work done tonight if we're talking about these things.
It's Friday. I asked them to give me a little bit more time than it's Monday. And instead of 84 pages, it's going to be more like 173. But hey, these conversations are better. And there's certain things that need to, I feel a need to butt in because I'm a butt in.
I want it.
But what happens is, and fuck, now I lost the train of thought. Shit.
We were talking about the Pledge of Allegiance, and I was talking about the significance of the separation between church and state.
Church and state. Thank you very much. Now, the Portuguese teacher that Junior actually pointed me to his video was explaining about the thing about the separation of church and state, because lots of people say, "Oh, but so that means that we can't have church at all in any place." That's not what it means. And we need to remember why the founding fathers, almost 250 years ago, wanted that separation of church and state. And it's not about when the majority is blah, because the majority is going to go to the system, the majority is going to choose their own pleasure. Okay, so we got to be careful with that, with the majority. But what they were running away from was a government that wanted to implement and force their religion on everybody. Everybody had to tithe to their church. Everybody had to do the charitable works that their church said, and everybody had to read the words that the state told them to read. And their version of the Bible was slightly different than that one, because the Anglicans decided to get away from the Catholic Church, which didn't allow Henry VIII to divorce his wife. So he had to be a widower 6 times. So yeah, that's why they're everywhere. So Henry VIII, he wanted to be within the rules, but he didn't like his wives, and he liked to get newer ones. And so what he ended up doing was, instead of divorcing his wives, which was not allowed, he had someone kill them. So he would be a widower, and therefore he could marry again. And so numerous wives ended up in the Tower of London, either head off or hung, depending on what their executioner chose. After that, he decided it was nuts. You had Luther doing different things and that sort of stuff. And he decided, well, I'm going to start my own church where divorce is allowed. And that's one of the bases of the Anglican Church, where they allow divorce. And they aren't privy to the papal decrees, which was good because the papacy was controlling the entire continent at that time as well.
Well,
power corrupts. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hold that thought with me for a minute. So when we're talking about churches wanting or allowing divorce and things like that, how do you feel about churches' stance on like birth control and things like that?
That particular institution.
Do you think a church should have a stance on that, or do you think?
Of course. What you do, depending on what the church says, is your choice. But the church has to have a stance on it.
Yeah, birth control specifically. Divorce is one thing. I understand the church wanting people to stay together and develop relationships that are long term, but I don't understand.
Divorce isn't necessarily a problem. Divorce was actually allowed in the Torah. It was legalese because people couldn't stand each other anymore. And for God, there wouldn't be any divorce at all, because the first person that you ever had sex with, you should be with for the rest of your life. That's the way he would prefer it, because there's more stability and a growth, and you get to know who the person is, and you get to see them. And when they're old, you remember when they were young, and you don't just see that old bag of bones in front of you. You remember that young, beautiful woman that you fell in love with, and you remember that soul and that interaction, and you grow with them. And that's that whole thing. It's not a smorgasbord to where you try this one, try that one, try the other one. Oh, I like that one better, but that one's already off, in somebody else's belly. And but that one's cool. And by the time you get to the end of the smorgasbord, you're garbage. You're no longer anything on anybody else's smorgasbord, and you're by your lonesome. So
let me ask you, do you think humans are polygamous by nature or monogamous by nature?
Nature, yes. By nature, absolutely. We must procreate with as many women as possible, because we need to make sure that our genetic seed propagates. Women must make sure that they propagate with somebody who will allow their species to exist for longer time. So they want somebody to provide for those kids and everything else, because what they are producing requires care in order to reach its end. What we're providing just requires somebody to be able to be the oven for a while. And so naturally, we have that tendency to propagate, so much so that it is extremely pleasurable. That's why we do it. That way we propagate the species. The problem that we're seeing is when you have 15 people in a family, it's kind of hard to feed everybody. When you don't think about the future, when you don't think about the constant and everything else. But that's also different from, well, I'm not going to have any kids because life sucks and I can't, I can barely take care of myself. How can I take care of anybody else?
Well, this brings me into one of a great borderline topic of what we're talking about. Tiffany said, I took birth control for a week, gained way too much, and it's kind of affects me in my emotions. But also, if a woman wants to take birth control, it's their choice.
Now, why does that particular?
Let me finish that thought. I wanted to say, if we're putting it on the table with that, do you think women's reproductive system and birth control rights should be covered by healthcare as much as males? Whether we're talking about Viagra, whether we're talking about anything, whether it's condoms, anything. There's plenty of reproductive things for males that has been pushed in government policy by Republicans that has not been pushed by Democratic parties for women in general. and their own reproductive rights.
You want to go down that rabbit hole?
We can go down that rabbit hole. It's a safe one, depending on how you feel about it.
Depending. I'm speechless.
I know I have a safe response on this because I consider myself a feminist, a classic feminist in that sense.
I was raised by feminists, so I know the book. But yeah, I'm speechless. Definitely. Yeah, insurance covers one. It's whoever screams loudest gets it. And that's what happens. The whiners get their
until the people that are screaming loudest for it aren't the ones paying for it. That's when it makes a difference.
Even depends because you're paying to shut them up. The problem is they never shut
personal insurance. Like when I think of public insurance, that to me is taxes. That is what you're paying for taxes is the public insurance. That's what a conservative should think of that. I want my money to go to the fire department, the police department, these services that protect me and my community. When you start
reaching community taxes, why are you paying federal taxes?
But when you reach out into farther programs that the community does not necessarily want to address or agree with for where their tax money goes, that's when you get the divide in community.
Well, what they did in the 1930s, they just pushed those people outside of the community so the community continued to feel safe. And when they started to build structures for their own homes that were cheaply made and potentially dangerous, they just went in with bulldozers, knocked everything down, and pushed them out of the way. They didn't do that here in Brazil, which is why we've got huge favelas. They're 3, 4, 5 stories tall. I don't even know how those things remain standing because they are just wood beams with tin on them.
Lucky you, Mud Rabbit.
You don't have state tax. They don't have income tax in Florida or Texas. Okay. Why? Because they respect their citizens, and that's why they grow, and that's why they are going to be the majority in
income taxes and state taxes are way different. So Florida pays very little tax in general.
Yeah,
they
as
only
Texas
pay federal tax.
As Texas,
Texas does pay a lot of taxes. It just depends on what it covers.
We didn't pay an income tax. We had some serious state tax.
No. They don't pay much in income tax. That's true.
That's the we have high. I mean, I remember my mortgage payment was just a small portion of what
Terry. That's a good response because you do pay taxes. They go to certain things, but they should go to certain things.
Well, and that's what you see in government.
That's what you see in
earmarked for that, but they take their stuff. That's what happens here in Brazil. They put everything on the paper. It looks great. We're going to build this bridge.
Sorry, Florida's still a very operating state. They are taking these tax money and putting them to the right places. That's why you still have bridges in Florida. That's why you still have roads in Florida that are still operational. And my best example I can give you is some of the more modern roads and bridges in Florida where they have to raise them all the time and have to do constant maintenance on them because they either have boats traveling under them because of the canals that they go through or the ports that they go through. There's a lot of bridges that have to have constant maintenance. So I know tax money is going to these things and it's being directed to the right places, but it seems like it's not getting wasted on other programs in Florida as it is in other states.
Within this $3.5 trillion bill that was going through, there was
for infrastructure. Are you talking about the infrastructure bill?
There was a little snippet in there. I think it was the 63rd topic that was in that bill. It showed up in one of the videos that I watched. If I'm not mistaken, it was $70 million for a little road that was being built in Madam X Speaker's district. The project itself was for $18 million, and it already had $4 million of capital that had been raised to pay for it, which meant that it was only lacking around $14 million in order to be done. how much is the difference between 14 million and 70 million? So why did the government budget 70 million if the actual project would in the end cost 14? Where does that, let's do a little math, what is that, like 54 million? Where does that go? Therein lies the question. The road got built, that's great, that's what our taxes are for. But it was built at 3 times the cost of what it originally was. Where did that money go? I know that people that work in government don't really make that much. Technically, they shouldn't. So how is it the people that have been in government for many, many years end up millionaires when they're not making that much money?
I don't know that many people in government that aren't making enough to at least live off of.
Who says that they make their money off their salaries, and therein lies the problem.
And and the question is, why do their salaries tie into some of these bills that we're passing for infrastructure or things like that? That's where I think the public outcry actually comes in.
They're kickbacks to their buddies, and their buddies give it back to the campaign, and the campaign gives it back as a salary, and it all gets washed away, and everybody gets theirs. And that's how the system works.
I wanted to jump in on Mud Rabbit's comment. Sorry. The asphalt is also different from up north. There's a little bit of difference in the chemical construct of what they use for asphalt, but it's actually not that different. The biggest difference is the freezing that happens and occurs in the northern states. Is you get this.
Do you guys put the concrete base under it as well?
I would say, well, so I live actually on
some swampy regions. In order to make sure they put a concrete base underneath, and so the asphalt itself ends up being smoother. And
it could be a lot different in Florida. I know that where I live at in Illinois, we actually have brick underneath. I live literally less than a half block away from what was considered the original Lincoln Highway, where President Lincoln actually traveled. And under that is actually all brick. And they have old clay bricks under what is considered our current road system. And there's a spot in our town right now that it's getting pulled up, and they go all the way down to the bricks, and then they relayer it after that. So our base is actually built on clay bricks.
That's been stamped down as pretty damn stable. So yeah, there's no reason
in our area.
That's because that was available. Here they're doing it with stone because that's what they were quarrying here in the area. And so before we didn't have asphalt, we had stone. When I first got here, it was like, holy cow, cars were destroyed. Now it's almost all asphalt. Some places they did it right. They pulled everything out. They dug it about 6 feet deep, and then they put in rebar for reinforced concrete. Then they put the asphalt on top of that. You know, this whole process, along with the drainage and everything else, it was expensive, and it was one of the premier places here in town. You can bet your ass they didn't do that here. The road in front of my house, I had to pay for along with my neighbors. Everybody paid for this section of road that was in front of their house. And we've got paving stones. Now, after 20 years, there's a problem with the paving stones. Can I call the city to fix it? No, because that's the responsibility of the people who live here.
Well, and that was one of my biggest problems with some of the ways, like as a landscaper, I have these issues that I have to regularly address that are in people's yards. And one of the most common ones is our clay tie-ins. When it comes to sewer systems and piping that goes to the town's tie-ins. We built these clay systems, and I understand nature enough that I'm 32 years old, and I understand nature enough to know that roots move underground. You cannot make a clay system that is going to last over time. It just won't work, especially underground.
It's going to break. Clay is dirt.
I mean, yes, you can worry about putting it at a low enough depth where you don't have to worry about the freezing and thawing of it, but that's a different level, and it's all based on the guy that installed it that day, if he was in the mood to actually dig it that deep. Sadly, that's something that people are starting to realize, whether it comes to any of their utilities that they have running in their backyard.
That's the exact same worry that my wife has about my trees, because she's worried about the root systems screwing up the house.
They actually are. They are significant. People do not take them into account. But most of the people that have that big of trees, they realize I worry more about my trees than I actually do the structures that I built around them.
Thank you very much. Everything that I do, I try to integrate with. Actually, I built the house first. The forest came later. But
in Mud Rabbit, I agree. So I do think there should be an offset when it comes to a certain amount of money. If you're referencing excesses of 10 billion, I feel like if any company or individual is making an excess of 10 billion, I feel like there's no reason that the state or the country shouldn't have an offset on that to redistribute wealth in a certain way. But it has to be, I mean, I think there's a balance to it. I'd love to know how you feel about it, Mud Rabbit, as well, because there has to be an offset in the sense that one person can monopolize this money if they have the right kind of people buying into whatever it is that they're selling. But at the same time, there has to be a balance in making sure that this money is redistributed into the community. So I don't have a problem with any business exceeding, levels that are way higher than expected. But I don't know. There should be levels to it at the same time.
So let me ask you a question. How much are you paying for an Apple, or what's the market price of the latest Apple iPhone? I think it's Apple 10 or some shit like that that's on right now.
You're asking the wrong guy.
Okay, so yeah, but basically the cost of making that in China is $150, and I guarantee you that nobody's paying $150. Now, I know that when I was buying really good
just to give you an idea, I do have an idea of the money that goes into making these Apple products, whether we're talking about the iPhone or whether we're talking about Apple's version of their tablet. I don't remember what it's called.
I'd like to go back to Foxconn. Do you remember Foxconn?
I don't remember that one offhand.
They're suicide nets. You don't remember?
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, I do know exactly what you're talking about with that. But I worked at a factory in a local town right next to me, and they developed the metal. They created the alloy that was put in all iPhones and all of the Apple tablets. And what it was a non-corrosive metal that basically made it so that the machine itself didn't heat up, and it had to reduce conductivity and lower the temperature. And so this was something created in our town that was shipped in from Japan that we would send back. And I know all of these companies' names specifically, and I can reference them, but
Fantastic.
I don't. Yeah. And basically, a lot of people don't know how much actual production goes into these products. But the question is, like we were talking about earlier when we were talking about mechanics.
Well, Apple is $1 trillion company, and the people who produce the things for Apple, and therein, I have to, in some levels, agree with that complaint that Mark's always had, because they do have a tendency to abuse. Okay, I mean, you have Bezos, shooting his big ass freaking dick rocket into space just to float around for a couple of minutes, and when he comes down, he thanks all the customers and employees and everybody else for allowing him the profits to be able to do that, while his employees can't take piss breaks. And Walmart employees are living off minimum wage, less than minimum wage, because they're living off welfare and food stamps. I mean, sorry, there comes a point to where you have to agree these fucking assholes are exploiting. And I'm all capitalist. I love that shit, but this isn't capitalism. Okay, they own the majority of everything. That's monopolism. That's not capitalism. Capitalism is what you're doing. Okay, when you build your own thing and you build your own brand and you're able to go out and you compete with others that are building their brand, and that's what we were maybe 120 years ago. Maybe even then it's questionable. So we got the Titanic, and then right after the Titanic, we got the implementation of the central bank. So these guys have been in charge for a long fucking time. All right. But the idea of capitalism is it's not the state that runs everything. It's not some big lords and oligarchs that are going to be running everything. It's the individuals doing the best they can to compete for everybody else's attention because you provide work, services, or something that somebody else needs and wants. That is the basis for capitalism. What we have today is an abusive and destructive system that has nothing to do with Adam Smith's version of capitalism. Capitalism had not more than 90 different competitors offering you a product, and the best will survive. What we have today is one big one offering you 20 different products, and no matter what you choose, they're all going to be shit, they're all going to be overpriced, and they're all going to make him fucking filthy rich. And the problem is that never fucking trickles down. Why? Because their money isn't theirs. Bezos doesn't have $1 trillion. No, he just gave his wife half a trillion, but technically he's got it all in stocks and locked up in this. He doesn't have cash available, but then again, he paid $200,000 to be able to go up in his big dick rocket, but he doesn't have cash available. So he can't spread that wealth out to those who really fucking need it. How much has Bill Gates done for Washington? You know, besides Seattle being a fucking cesspool that it is, you know. So Bill Gates has done great things. No, the people working for fucking Microsoft have actually increased the property values to where nobody can actually live anywhere. You know, what happened to San Francisco, which is Silicon freaking Valley. This is where the highest paid individuals on the planet are at, doing what nobody else can actually do.
The nets installed that we were talking about. It wasn't, that's what I've always thought was interesting is suicide is a first world problem. It's not a third world problem. First world problems seem to be, I can't handle reality, so I gotta take myself away from it, whether it's addiction or whether it's all of these other things.
Which I'm going to get one of my addictions right now. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'm going to catch up the chat a little bit. All right. Terry said cobblestone bricks. Yeah, they have multiple different underlining bricks for what they use for some of the bases for the roadways that we have now. And yes, some of Lincoln Highways was actually based in cobblestone brick. There was a couple different ones. And it's a beautiful, charming town. It's beautiful and charming towns here. Yeah. You can understand. And he said, very nice. Oh, Joey's out here. Okay. Glad to see you tuning in, Joey. Hey, let me get dressed and I'll join. Yeah, we'd love to have you. I think it's awesome. We're able to afford infrastructure improvements. Yes, and I think it's because that, like we were saying, they're addressed the right ways. They're not actually getting foreshadowed by anything else. Sorry, Lauren. Let me address your question. You can ask anything you want as long as it's YouTube appropriate. You can ask it in the comments, or if you want, we can let you in the Discord that we're having here, and you can join in as well. Let's see here. Joey said hi. Everybody said hi back to Joey. I'm gonna share his name up here in case anybody didn't get it. Aman Raja is his Instagram name, I believe. So it sounds like he's got his YouTube up and going again. That's good. But yeah, Lauren, feel free to reach out to us. You can ask a question in the comments, or you can join our Discord as well.
So they all start popping in around midnight. Is that it?
It looks like it. Joey just saw that we were on, so I invited Joey. Let's see here. Tiffany said hi, Lauren, and Terry was explaining it a little bit more for Lauren in case she didn't know what was going on. Ask any questions you'd like, and we're talking about a wide range of topics.
We're really limited in scope and the things that we talk about, especially today. We went from anthropology and sociology to infrastructure to flying dick rockets to Marxism and, peaceful ways of marching and protesting.
The only limits we have are our freedom of speech limits on this platform.
Which, by the way, remind us of the book that you just received.
Yeah, that would be the book Speechless by Michael Knowles that I just received from the Daily Wire. And we now have Joey Gage jumping in with us here. How you doing, Joey?
How you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good. What I gotta ask since our last video? What do you got in that mug there?
Just a little tea.
All right.
Is it green tea or is it black tea?
It's psilocybin tea.
Is it bruised tea? Okay, bruised.
That's no. Yeah, I got. He mentioned that. That's excellent. So you'll be good here in a little while.
Oh, we don't know how long he's been drinking tea.
I've been sipping on it for about 10 minutes. I'd say give me a half hour to an hour, and I'll be feeling funny.
Yeah. Okay. So
then I gotta start reading. The comments to you.
Because otherwise, the portals will open and whole lots of other messages will be starting to come in.
I'll be ready to channel. Yes.
So Joey, I was having this conversation with Michael the other day, and it was. I don't know if I touched on this with you as well. How do you feel when your body is open in those situations? Do you feel like you're open to other entities taking over I learned from our talks about your importance to the vessel itself, and that you don't necessarily have a tie to coming back to this meat vessel.
Right. But
my only question is, do you feel like your body's open when you're in these states?
No, I don't feel that it's open to possession in that capacity that I think that you're asking about, because I don't feel that. I feel that the spiritual experience, while external from the body, as you basically become one with spirit outside yourself, the goodness within you doesn't leave. You're only open to something like demonic possession when you have a vacuum within you, when you have empty space within you that can then be filled. So in shamanistic healing, actually in, I believe it's Peru, they use, it sounds silly, but they use guinea pigs to rub negative energy out of the human body. And then they.
In what sense do they use guinea pigs? Because guinea pig can be interpreted in a lot of different ways.
They literally take a guinea pig and rub the animal on the person's.
That would be grounding. That's a lot better than what I was thinking about the Pretty Woman guy.
No, quite literally, they take the animal and they.
That's grounding. It's the ionization basically. Yes. He's been grounded all day. Because he's walking around, whatever, the guinea pig is grounded.
Yes.
Because it's in the muck. And so you rub that on you, and that's the same thing as becoming grounded. So walk barefoot on the ground, and it's
earthing.
Yes. That's the connection you need.
Yeah.
15 to 20 minutes has been proven by many doctors that I've listened to. It does actually make a difference to your body, healing, blood pressure, and everything else.
As well as the fact that
now, question: if Divine Tiffany actually grabs her guinea pigs and puts them like earmuffs, will that allow her to channel her inner chakra?
I think
we can get those guinea pigs to really earth her down. And
it's that nature connection that you need.
It'll open her third eye and her crown chakra, I think.
So we need to buy her a support for her 2 guinea pigs. And
so let me ask you with the insightful question that you just asked. Do you ever get a connection when you hold your dog in your lap, or when you're sitting there petting your dog or your animals? You get a personal
That's a different one because you're actually getting a love response.
Yeah, that's a love response. I think that with the guinea pigs, and it, there's other cultures that don't use guinea pigs, but with the guinea pigs, they're removing this negative energy, and then the shaman sings positive energy into the body. So, and actually, in Tibet, there's a very similar practice that's done where negative energy is removed from the body, sickness is removed, and then positive energy is sung into or played into the body. And the concept behind this is that if you fill the space within your body, then it cannot be filled by any other negativity. And here's the interesting part, is that if we look at the atomic model, the subatomic model, the model of a particle, it's mostly empty space, right? And in the shamanistic cultures, they're talking about how we are mostly empty space within us, despite the fact that they knew that, you know, we had guts and things like that. So just interesting that, yet again, these ancient cultures seem to have known things.
The empty space that you're talking about in the middle of the protons, neutrons, and that sort of thing, between the nucleus and the electrons, yeah, that's a lot of empty space, and that would basically make up absolutely everything. That's not necessarily the internal empty space that you are trying to fill. That is an existential void that exists within us, and it can only be filled when we find the connection with He who created it in the first place. So the closer we are to the Father, the better that void is filled. And otherwise, we're always trying to fill it with something.
I'm not sure that I can say I differentiate, though, between the physical and spiritual. I don't think that in reality that they are differentiated. I think that you can say there's a dichotomy and you can say that there's a branching aspect between them, but you can say that with anything.
What happens there? What as below, as above, so below? Is that it? Am I doing the right pose for Madonna?
It's beautiful.
I just didn't grow the tits yet for the goat head.
You'll get there. Sort of thing. You'll get there. Just keep trying.
No, I'm not going in that direction. Anytime I start developing breasts, I try and get back into shape, tone myself up, and get the chest back up, and then the belly still back to the 6-pack abs and stuff.
Doing the lateral pull downs, right?
I do anything I can to avoid the man tits, because whenever you work out young, and if you don't keep it up, yeah, that's exactly what you develop.
This is a common conversation I've had to bring up with you and Michael McIntosh. I feel like there's a certain level of physical prowess you're allowed to brag about, and the lack of growing man tits isn't one of them. Because I had this conversation with Michael recently. He jumped on and was flexing and showing his muscles, and I was like, you know, this isn't my channel for that. I was like, but if you'd like to, we could make it that. I was like, but I consider myself to be somebody who considers himself athletic. I try to work out as much as possible. My job helps with that a little bit. But at the same time, I try to avoid flexing on camera and anything like that. So
have I flexed?
No.
Have I tried to show
you
anything
haven't.
Else?
I'm pointing to Michael specifically on this.
Dude, I was laughing when he did that. He's got scrawny ass arms. What the hell? I mean, it's like me telling him that I made $20 yesterday, and he'll be going, "Yeah, in the last 5 minutes, I made $1.4 million." You know,
yeah, it's a different level.
We're not in the same ballpark.
Is this physical flexing, or are we talking about like weird flex, bro?
No, he did one of those. Look at my arm. I was working out.
He did a physical flex, but I feel like every one of my guests on here has their own mental flex their own reality flex that they like to put on it. And that's
not on here without flexing.
Weird.
No. You have your own. You have your own muscle. You flex. It's just not
what I'm talking about.
It's just not the physical bicep.
You flex.
Mud Rabbit's on topic, and she's absolutely right. For many different reasons, not just one. Yeah.
What happened when not long ago in the 70s that found that elderly that had pets lived longer and were happier and healed faster?
And I was going to bring this topic up. Patients who stay in hospitals that have sights, views outside the window of nature, of trees, are recorded to not only request less pain-killing medicine, but also actually have a faster release time on average than patients who don't have those same views out the window.
How about resonance? If you ever, for example, there is a very, very high mortality rate for no other reason among nuns after retirement. And so it was bizarre. My brother-in-law brought up that statistic, and I'm like, are you sure? But then it made absolutely perfect sense because the reason for living was gone. They're retired. They can't be nuns anymore, but they wanted to be their entire lives. So all of a sudden, yeah, we're already now we're on to nuns. We're off the man tits. Now we're on the nuns.
I love it.
The delay.
I just need to say though, all of a sudden, they got none left.
they got none left. The raison d'être, the reason for being.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
and
I'm so sorry.
That's. It was a funny joke. Why are you apologizing to me? I'm not Catholic.
Spectacles, wallet, and watch.
Yeah, exactly, my friend.
Yeah, actually, somebody told me the other day that if you actually see that, you're doing an inverted cross or whatever. I don't know.
It's like, do you realize what you're doing? Like,
is there a right direction? I need to ask the
I don't.
Is it right to left or left to right? Am I doing it wrong?
I don't know. I'm not Catholic.
Well, let's call on a Catholic.
No?
All right, I got somebody. Hold on.
Somebody ought to know.
I'm just.
Are you serious?
So I actually have had somebody reach out to me recently. They sent me a friend request on one of the other social medias and sent me basically a short video saying they're interested in letting me know more about their religion. And so I responded with kind of an open-ended response just to see what theirs was. I told them recently I've been studying Scientology. I would love to hear more about what you have to talk about. And they just reached back to me, and I'm definitely willing to have them on this channel. They're actually a member of.
Nobody messes with Scientology. They're all afraid.
They're a member of the DeKalb community, and so it should be interesting to see where we go.
I'm curious to see if I know this person.
You're all in the same area, so that might be a possibility. I'm sure I don't know.
That would be a very.
But anyway, so I was going on to the nuns because I wanted to go to the fact that we all need something. We all need to be here for something. What they found in that experiment that Mud Rabbit was talking about earlier is that when older people have a pet, they have a raison d'être. They have a reason of being. They can't die because their dog's going to starve to death or their cat's going to starve to death. So if they're not there to feed the cat, then, they got to wake up in the mornings because the cat's, licking them on the nose or the dog's barking at them because they're hungry. Okay, so it gives them a reason for being. That's reason number one. Reason number two is the fact
before you get too far into that, do you know what happens with the cat when the human doesn't respond after a certain period of time?
They go to a place that they know the human doesn't like them to do anything bad to, and they shit there or piss there. I know my cat did that repeatedly.
No, the cat will eventually eat the human. That's the difference between the dog and the cat. The cat will eventually actually eat the human. And it is actually checking.
Dog won't eat the human, even no matter how hungry he is.
The dog will not eat the human. The dog will scavenge. Say it's locked in the house. The dog will scavenge what's around the house and then eventually try to break out of the house, regardless of the human's status.
Whereas the cat, if the human is their soul is gone, the cat will say, kibbles and bits.
The cat thinks about the soul, maybe. But the dog doesn't care anything about what's going on with the human and its body. The cat is more interested in if it's responding to them anymore, and it's then a food source.
The
Cats are
loyalty of
very
cat.
cats are very intuitive, and they will be in the best survival instinct of their own.
Well,
It's
there's a
interesting.
comedian that I watched once on one of the Facebook things that I follow, and he was talking about, you know why I like cats? Because a cat goes by, hey, how was your day? Oh, I remember. I don't care.
Accurate.
Cats don't give a shit. They're like, hey, I'm hungry, so you're gonna feed me and do everything I want, and I'm not gonna do anything for you other than
Like
maybe shit in the corner.
Sometimes you can find a cool cat, you know. But the thing is, every time you find a cool cat, people are like, "Yeah, my cat's so cool. My cat's like a dog." Well, why the fuck don't you just have a dog then?
Well, that's
I'm not
it's
gonna
a
lie.
cat dog, and
I'm not gonna lie. I've evolved. I actually liked dogs more initially, and my significant other got me more into cats, and I liked them more because they actually had more of a personality than dogs. I love all the dogs I've had in my life, but when it comes to personality, I get a lot more from my cats than I do from my dogs. That's
my honey.
that's literally the only thing I noticed.
Interesting.
Oh,
honey.
there's the Scruffy.
This is my honey. Yeah, she's around me all the time. She's a good baby. You want to look at the camera? Look at the camera, honey. Yeah, honey. Yeah,
Good
yeah.
God. This is so cringe.
Yeah, but I grew up with a cat, and I love cats, but I'm allergic to them.
I know,
Now,
but it's
this
just
dog,
hilarious.
this is the
It's
most
like,
love I've actually given. I don't put him in my lap, but that's why she's shaking. But I wanted you guys to be able to see her. I know, baby. I'll put you down. I know.
I love it. Just the whole look at the camera. Look at the camera. Damn it. It's so cool.
Tiffany said, "Is that why my cat gave me a love bite the other day? She was tasting me. Yeah, it could have been a taste test, checking to see if you're still reactive."
You never know. Just checking.
Right.
So that's my honey.
Make sure you're still moving.
Yeah.
LOL, Tiffany. Maybe mine has stopped attacking my ankles, yet she's still young. Yeah, there's still more time.
No, they'll attack your ankles until later. A cat, 2 dogs, 2 guinea pigs, and your bird. So you got a zoo at home, Tiffany. All right.
Okay,
That explains a lot.
read
Speaking of which, Jake was telling me, and he's right. You got to do a reading for me later on, but we'll set that one up.
Oh yeah, I would also like to have that done. It's been quite a while since I've had a tarot reading.
Hold on, I gotta jump in here. I was having a little cough attack, but Tiffany. So everybody would love to hear you on, and I've had a couple people from this channel reach out to you, including Terry and a few others. But if you get the chance, if you're available tonight, we would love to do a single card pull if you have the time.
Yes.
What kind of dog did you have, Mud Rabbit? Just curious. Yeah, it's always sad losing an animal because they are like part of the family.
It's burying my dog, Sugar, was like the hardest fucking thing I've ever done.
What kind of dog was Sugar? And how did you guys get to that point? How long did you have her?
So
Sugar.
she was a dachshund mix. I think she was a dachshund min pin mix, actually, because she had all those facial features. Min pins and dachshunds have very similar facial markings, but she had slightly longer legs, but was a dachshund, you know. So anyway, she was just such an awesome dog. She
It's
ended
a
up
high-stepping wiener. Is that it?
a high stepping wiener. When we went to, she was
I like that term.
That's right. So when we went to look at a second dog, we weren't really getting the vibes off this dog that we went to see, you know? And then we were looking at all the other dogs, and Sugar, her name at the time was Nadine, which was not actually her name. And
Told you that, right?
yeah.
Or is that the T talking?
Oh, no. It was just obviously not her name. She didn't respond to it. Like, she didn't respond to Nadine. Like, I think that they just called her that at the shelter, like, when they got her, you know? But anyway, so She was actually in the kennel that was next, like in the kennel next to where our first dog was in. Like when we first got our dog.
Well, that's coincidental, or the fact that you always go back to the same place for another mutt. That place has been around for more than 7 years.
I always think it's so weird the way they name dogs.
The timing, and just that the dog Sugar ended up being perfect, and she, like 40 minutes after we left, there was like another couple people that came in, and they were like, "We want to get this dog," and somebody was like, "Sorry, she's already reserved." We couldn't get her yet because they just had to spay her, so I didn't neuter her.
Yeah, that's so she was still young because they hadn't done that yet. Okay.
No, she was from like down in Oklahoma, and I don't know if they were using her for breeding or if she had just been a stray or just.
No, they just didn't spay her because they didn't think she was going to get out of the house.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to be honest. My Weimaraner is not spayed. She's past the point where like I could do it and it's totally safe. I know that you're not supposed to do it within like the first 9 months or so of them being alive, but yeah, I just don't have money.
Going on money for that.
I have
money. You just don't have money for that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, I have friends in high places. I guess it's something I also don't really prioritize. I mean, what if she like meets a really handsome boy dog?
Question: do you want a litter? Are you willing to take care of 5 puppies?
It would be a lot of work. I had 11 snakes at one time with the intention of actually breeding ball python color morphs. Didn't end up going down that road because it was just so much, and we were gonna move potentially. But I love animals, man. I actually really do love caring.
So this is the conversation I got in with my significant other earlier. I have a rabbit. And with like rabbits, when you
like a vibrator.
What was that?
Like a vibrator?
No, like an actual rabbit. Let me. I gotta give some reference to Dirt Bunny, as Mud Rabbit has given me the influence of naming.
That's really nice. A very nice nod.
But
that is a very nice nod.
I have this young gentleman here who I've had
it's
for
pet night. It's pet night.
Years.
You got to put that in the comments. Tonight is pet night.
Well, I have my bunny here, and we often get into discussions of talking about getting him fixed. And he doesn't have a girl rabbit around him, and so with rabbits compared to other animals, they actually have a higher chance of developing cancer and other reproductive problems if you don't get them fixed.
If you don't use it, you lose it.
Exactly. That's actually exactly what it is. And but I also wonder if getting him fixed is going to kill his livelihood and his libido, if you will. I wonder if
how would you feel with your balls cut off?
Yeah.
But I don't know if I can make the proper equivalency. So
you just made 2 arguments against neutering.
But here's my thing. So that's the same statement I made to my significant other is I don't know if I'm making an educated decision on the fact that I don't know, because I'm just trying to relate of what it would like to be snipped as an adult human. I don't know.
You are mirroring your own reality on.
And I don't know if that's the best decision for my animal.
Well, the best decision, according to society, is it's an animal. Cut the balls off because you don't want another 20 of those, and it's more problematic, and it's not going to be stressed out because it's just a freaking animal. It has no consciousness. It's going to die soon anyway. That would be the most cold-hearted, scientific, this society-based type of response. My response would be, he's got balls, don't cut him off. He's going to feel it. I mean, it's,
And that's,
but
and that's kind of how I feel about it.
Well, dude, and scientifically, if he is matured, it's not gonna. Your initial question, it shouldn't really affect his behavior because it. Or
why do you want to
But I
spend
mean,
so
how
that he
much-
can't
How
reproduce?
much?
But if there's nothing
so-
for him to reproduce with,
Let me give you guys. Let me give you guys an example of his everyday activities. Sometimes when I reach in to feed him, he wants to try to hump my hand. It's part of his everyday routine to actually
it's like
be
any teenage boy.
attracted and getting off his jollies, if you will. And I wonder if that will kill his actual attitude, if he's just going to
It
lay
will.
there stagnant afterwards, or if he's going to still have the same energy. And
He's gonna be depressed as fuck.
Yeah.
I don't want to
But
assume
that
that.
means, but under other technical
I don't
terms,
wanna
that would
assume-
mean that he's docile, controllable, and less problematic, and he'll stop humping your arm.
Problematic isn't necessarily, and that's the biggest thing I like to address as a pet owner is just because a pet is problematic doesn't mean you should or should not own them. You should know that before going into owning a pet.
It's
If
responsible
you
pet
think
That
a
is
pet
problematic.
is more high maintenance,
It's because
then
you aren't used to.
put that into
My
account.
wife considers my Jacu very problematic. That pet bird that I have.
Yeah.
She considers him extremely problematic because he shits all over the place. Okay.
That is problematic.
However, I understand it's a fucking bird. I'm not going to train him. That's a beautiful shot. I love that fucking bunny.
That is an animal.
We should have put that on just you on the big screen, and we can actually take a screenshot of that, and you could actually put that down as, your logo for your page, your bunny's face.
He's my boy, Rabbit De Niro.
Rabbit De Niro. Oh, there you go. You ought to put Rabbit De Niro as your logo on the page. But anyway, it depends. Existentially, they have a consciousness and they feel things, and we should treat them as lovingly as we can.
It's true.
On another level, they are our pets. They are our animals. They are our responsibility. Unless you want to take care of another 5 fucking animals, it's best to make sure that they can't. For example,
Are you
my
gonna
bitch
have them around?
when she was young, I knew that if she was outside my gate for more than 15 minutes, or if she was gone for an hour, like ran off and then came back, I'd have to do her in because I wasn't going to have, 7 puppies running around, because I know what my dad had to deal with. That's a lot of freaking food. It's a lot of vet shots, a lot of vet visits, and a lot of shit all over the place. Okay, so it's extremely problematic. I had her cut, and I feel sorry for her because she's a 65-year-old virgin. How would I feel being a 65-year-old virgin? It wouldn't be fucking nice. But at the same time, she's my fucking dog.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing. It's not
It is.
wild. It's not free. It lives domesticated in my reality. So there are certain things that, for example, I'll put up with my bird's shit, but I won't put up with having an extra 7 puppies. So I do what I kind of have to as well. But
Yeah. It's,
in your case, you don't have to neuter your rabbit for reproductive purposes because it's never around anyone that it could actually.
Well, that's the other
reproduce
thing.
with.
Because he was raised so well, he doesn't have any inbreeding in his family lineage because of the person I got him from. I didn't get him from a pet store or anything else. He was actually going to be fed to this big ass anaconda that my buddy also raises anacondas as well as raises rats and bunnies for food. But this one actually wasn't interbred at all. He was taken care of. And I was just like, well, I don't want to watch him die. I'll take him home. So I ended
You'll
up
watch him die slowly.
Yeah, I didn't want to watch that. So I took him home. And
It's dying every day, and eventually it will be kaput. But at least it's not in one fell swoop.
Oh, yeah.
You'll see the progression.
Literally the whole way home, I'm talking to him. I'm like, hey, do you realize, like, you're the only one that made it out? Like, none of these other guys are making it out. I pulled you out of the fucking shit. It was a
Pulled him
common
out of
joke
the
I had
snake's
with my
mouth.
own rabbit.
That's what I'm trying to do myself, Jake. I'm trying to pull people out of the snake's mouth, because the snake is coiling around a great many people.
See, I feel that anytime there's talk of like a threat or an adversary, it just closes me off, because I can't, like, yes, I see a duality, a yin and yang, but at the same time, I'm like, when you close yourself off like that, but also when you address it in such a way, you give such a power to it. And I had a pastor who spoke in that way, and he was very against Halloween. And how the fuck can you be against Halloween?
I am against it. I don't dress up for it for a very, very, very long time.
See, there we are.
I gotta address.
I don't put my energies in that direction. I prefer to place my energies to where I'll be most beneficial in the end. And dressing up as a demon and isn't necessarily my idea of putting my energy in good places.
I gotta address Terry on this comment. He said, "After midnight, this show turns a little blue." What do you mean, Terry? Come on, we're talking
after
about
midnight. It's like 1 o'clock my time, so I'm usually damn tired.
I'm zonked and I'm literally tripping.
Literally, and he hasn't
at the same time. Sorry,
I just got done playing the concert.
What did you play?
I played at Tapas, Tapa Luna.
Oh, okay.
I played handpan for 3 hours.
Oh, so you're not going to do a bit for us? Encore.
I got at least.
You got to give our new
right
fans here a little bit something.
I have it here. I'm nice and warmed up. You know,
it's never.
Hey, you're tripping balls. So how much warmer can you get?
It's very true. It's when you're in the heat of the moment.
You just let the energy flow, baby, and be in the background.
I'm going to insert my external perspective and say he's far from tripping balls.
Yeah,
true.
It's having a normal conversation with us.
You're absolutely right. Sorry, you're absolutely right. He's not yet.
I think it's contained, but
yeah, I would say you're maintaining, Mitch.
Of course, he's not going off the rails. That's a good thing. However, he's still not playing the bongos. So you know.
I'm sorry. I'll bust him out. I'll bust out the bongos. No, it is true. I don't want to work.
You talking to me, Rabbit?
Talking to me? You're talking to me? You're not. You can't be talking to me. You're not talking to me. Yeah, you consider that Dirt Bunny or Dirty Bunny? If he's yours, it's probably Dirty Bunny.
I named it. I gave the nickname after Mud Rabbit, so I decided Dirt Bunny was
I'm thinking you got to change it. It's got to be Dirty Bunny.
No, it's just
Dirty Bunny.
Yeah, Dirty Bunny.
It's not Muddy Rabbit.
He's still got his balls. He's a dirty rabbit.
Oh my! So, and that's something you'll learn if you ever own a rabbit. Rabbits are OCD about cleaning themselves worse than cats are. They clean themselves probably 4 to 5 times a day.
Because they like it and they enjoy it.
Yeah. No, I'm saying they're OCD about themselves. They're never dirty or muddy.
I admire that. I respect that.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine in college that had a tarantula. And he would buy a bag of crickets, and he'd toss the crickets in there to feed the tarantula. And it was fun to watch it because the cricket would be sitting in there looking and seeing where it could jump and everything else, and the tarantula was there just looking at it, waiting for it to stop. And the tarantula usually didn't move very fast. It was just kind of doing its thing. But whenever it ate, that's why my friend called him Flash.
Flash.
Because he never moved very fast, but those crickets never knew what hit him. I mean, he was at least 12 inches away, and in less than a millisecond, it was just on that freaking cricket, and that cricket was halfway in its mouth. It's just incredibly fast.
That's beautiful.
Don't do snakes very much. I got this thing still. I like to watch them and see them, and
I did have a ball python. We named him Sniper because when he was eating, he was young, but when he was eating, he would kind of like hover and like get ready and just take like one quick shot. I don't know.
The Sniper.
Sniper.
That was my favorite comment right there. She's muddy from going down the rabbit holes. Absolutely. Too many damn rabbit holes. Ain't they, Mud Rabbit? However, all those rabbit holes are.
I like the vague idea that the rabbit holes you're going down are attaching to you in a certain way. They're sticking.
I'm thinking they're attaching to something. All those rabbit holes are leading us to one big subterranean civilization.
Well, yeah, in general, and regardless of the subterranean civilization, that's another rabbit hole in its own. But the idea that these rabbit holes that you consider yourself going down are leaving something behind on you, whether it's mud or something like that, is actually a lot deeper in the premise of thinking about it.
It's profound. I mean, anything that touches us leaves an imprint.
Every time we go down these rabbit holes, it changes us profoundly because of the information that we acquire from it.
Oh, okay?
That's just generally the way it is. Why? Because within that tangential multiverse that I was telling you and we were discussing, that probably all those paths are already in cement. It just depends on which one of those cement paths that you choose to take. So within that multiplicity, whenever you go down one of these rabbit holes,
good word, by the way, multiplicity.
You're going down outside of this verdant, this general path that will lead you to what is your ultimate destiny, which is what we're all trying to achieve anyway. The reason why we're here. However, we go off the path and try and find out more information and find out if that path is the right one, if it's the best way to walk down that path and everything else. And we started off today with Monkey Shoulder. Absolutely. AI is going to be our downfall. Elon Musk.
We never actually got to dive into it. So, because this is something I would also like to ask Joey. What are you guys' thoughts on Neuralink, and how willing are you to?
What do you mean we didn't touch on this? I thought we did an entire half an episode.
I don't think we ever actually dived into the farthest point of it, and we touched on how much. I was
talking about the AI programming us, and we'd be part of the hive mind. And
I agree, but we never touched on how much. I don't think we ever touched on how much humans are going to actually be willing to, exert to these robots.
I love the idea because they won't understand what it actually does.
Well, the issue is that ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to have these factions, and you're going to have the techs, and you're going to have the rebels, or basically the brutes, and ultimately technology is going to win, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that that's the side.
You think the zombies are going to win?
I mean, I'm saying that I don't see in a world where you could have a soldier with like literally neurotransmitters and heightened senses.
What, you mean I can't take on Captain America?
I don't know. I feel like maybe
I'm pretty strong, man. I think I could take on Captain America.
I feel like you probably could. You're convincing me more and more.
No, yeah, we have super soldiers. They already exist. The AI is going to be more powerful than we are. The question is this. If you are faced with a superior enemy, will you simply submit and accept the dominance of the superiority of this being that is beyond you?
No, you never do that. You never.
I will in one time.
Do not go gently, right?
What? What? I didn't hear that one.
I said you don't go gently, right? Do not go gently.
Do not go gently into that good night, young sir. Do not go gently into that good night. And that's the thing. People aren't going gently. They are asking for it. They are begging for it. And they are lining up for it to go into that good night. And that's where I guess we get the blue aspect after midnight.
Now, blue is in we're depressing, or blue is in we're just
that's what I was asking.
Blue is in we're depressing, man. That's why.
Like, do you guys really feel like we're going down the depressing route? Because I feel like we try to draw the most positive out of any depressing thing we're talking about.
After midnight, our entire aura goes down, and we're just on really sad topics. Not that we're depressing.
That being said, I apologize if that's the case.
I think that ultimately, talking about anything like Neuralink or Neuralink or even like what is it, Starlink, like with all the satellites blasting 5G and disrupting astronomers' view of the night sky. I think all of that is bad, obviously, and there's not really a great way to put a good spin on that. I don't know how you could.
How about this? How about the fact that they have already found the center of your brain to where we use to meditate, to connect with God, to pray, to whatever it is that you do, that chakra, the area in the brain that actually affects that center of the chakra. They've already found out where that was, and they need some kind of just tool to access that particular center of the brain to numb us down, to make sure that we don't have any fanaticism at all. After that, we already know the areas of the brain that receive the video signals, the centers of the brain that receive the audio signals. And we also know the parts of the brain that control different aspects of our body. Now, there are things being placed in, and this is something that Jake doesn't like to touch on. Yeah, I am prepared for the worst, Mud Rabbit, because I am very aware of that, and that includes me losing my head, literally.
What are we touching on before we digress?
To the system. If you don't submit to the system.
The comment.
What system do you have to submit to?
The beast system, the Antichrist system, because if you do not worship the image of the beast, the AI system will have capacity to take you out immediately.
So the vaccination system that you're
I was talking about the beast. I was talking about the beast system in the Bible. I didn't mention anything about the words that are not supposed to be on this channel.
No. I just want to make 100% clarity. You're tying in the vaccination system with the mark of the beast.
More ways than you can possibly imagine.
Okay.
I just think it's literally just another step in their.
It could very well be in implementing more control features to us. However, this is the first time. But this is the first time they've actually genetically modified. And second of all, in order to understand and track things better, there is a substance added to them that one person pronounced it as luciferase.
Luciferase. Before you go too far, what person are you referring to that acknowledged this being?
There are various sources, not just one. That was the latest that I saw, because he made a bunch of biblical references about everything, including the CRISPR system. However, there have been many.
Who is he? Before you go too far, who is he that you're referring to?
First video that I'd watched on this guy, so I don't remember what his name was. But as far as the what's involved in that, yes, there are many doctors that have mentioned exactly what's in that. Sherry Tenpenny mentions how the alterations will be.
There's literally like a name.
Creating a factory, but there were other doctors that were in the same interviews that were mentioning some other things that were in there, including one that lights up under ultraviolet light. You can actually look that up under Bill Gates's actual patents.
That's what I'm saying. I want you to give me references so I can actually support what you're saying. But until you give me references,
if I had to give references for everything that I've
no, you don't have to. You don't have to give. I've never asked you to give references for everything. If you're talking about a controversial subject and you're making a point on yourself, then I expect you to at least back those up with a person you've heard from or something.
Can't remember his name, but let me see if I can go into my list and find, because I probably saved him
Go
on.
ahead, look it up. I'll catch up the chat at the same time. Thanks, Tiffany. I would never.
I'm grabbing some water.
I would never, unless you're feeling 100%. Yeah, I was talking about if you ever wanted to jump on with us and do any kind of readings or anything like that. Yeah, unless you're feeling 100%, I wouldn't want you to jump in with us. Let's see here. The next one. Oh, she said, I appreciate that. I will on the next live. So yeah, we'd love to have you on and do a tarot card reading with us. And we welcome it. We'll share all your channels, and we brought a few people to you so far, but I have a feeling we could bring a few more if you want. The V word.
Scattering cancer with resonant frequencies, music medicine. I've had 8 deleted videos so far.
Call it shot. Mudder Rabbit said, call it shot. So I think the most common perception that it should be put into is actually flu shot or flu vaccine, because I think it's constantly
not the same thing. That's the problem. It is not the same thing.
Hold on, let me finish. All right. So when I say flu vaccine or flu shot, I think it's a constantly evolving thing because of the way that we attacked it initially. If you don't attack it initially in a universal stance, regardless of what it is, your pursuit of herd immunity is based on your method of attack. And if people choose vaccine as the route, that's a route you can go. If people choose herd immunity from catching it, I think that's also a route you can go. And I think until you reach a majority on that aspect, you're never going to stop variations. But
problem is that you can actually there's a way to resolve this.
Mike, we talked about this offline, but I want to. This is a hard topic to talk about online. When it comes to these things, yes, there's other ways to counter them, and there's other ways to.
However, there's a way to counter the disease. There's no way to counter the cure. The cure itself is worse. And
do we have? Let me ask you this: do we have any cure to any virus on the planet?
There are some people actually. They don't want to admit to them because big pharma.
Name one virus that we have a cure to on this planet.
No, not a virus.
Anyone.
Virus, exactly. For example, the flu viruses, for example, majority of viruses.
We don't have a cure to it because we have a flu season every year.
Yeah, there's no cure.
Yeah, because people are
if you guys can name any virus, no, let me continue this topic. If you can name any virus that we have a cure to, I'd be happy to address it. Herpes is a good example. The HIV virus is a good example. Name one virus that we have wrapped our arms around and said, okay, we have this figured out.
It is not in pharma's interest to actually cure the viruses, and therein lies the basic problem. What they like is to maintain people on.
I may or may not agree with you that the medical field has their own interests, but that is regardless of our topic. My only topic right now is, do you think there's any viruses on this planet that we can cure or have control of?
Elevate your pH levels, make your body more alkaline. The majority of viruses that have been found in the body cannot survive. They thrive in acidic environments. And if the environment is more alkaline, those viruses, regardless of which ones they were, will have a tendency to dissipate.
Listen, I agree that vitamin C, vitamin D, and a proper alkaline and a proper alkaline level in your body are very important. Just like I've noted before on this channel that your immediate nutrients are very, very important when people think about hydration levels. Whether
Your
you're talking
stress
about
levels and your mindset are also extremely important to that. If you're stressed out, one of the first things that your system does when you're stressed is suppress your immune system. Why? Because it can't worry about a cold or a sniffle if you're running away from a bear. You're going to worry about the bear first. And then later on, when you're safe, then your body will go, wait, I think I've got a cold. And then you'll start to worry about the cold. I see that with my wife all the time. So our mentality on the weekends, she always gets sick. Why? Because she holds everything in during the week. Her stress levels are through the roof, which is why her blood pressure is also extremely high. So our mentality affects everything within our system. Okay, so if you're extremely stressed out, that will make you more vulnerable to things. Yeah. If you are also eating poorly, that means
But do you think just the stress levels, do you think that has to correlate with what me, you, and Joey have been talking about in the sense of those energy levels you put off?
Yeah, because the stress is exactly there to create that constant panic, anxiety, and ultimately fear. Because we're stressed out, because we're constantly fearful of losing this, losing that, losing the other, not having the other, about the future. What's going to happen 30 years from now? What's going to happen 20 years from now? Oh my God, but if I say the wrong thing, then 5 years from now, where am I going to be? And so we're always worrying, we're always stressed out, and that they feed off of. And so they want us in that state, but that is a very destructive state to our health and our essence. Why? Because it degrades us. I mean, I am in the personal belief, this is only my belief, I have absolutely no proof on this. However, I have only anecdotal evidence for that. People that are extremely stressed out or have some internal negative things have a tendency of generating, because we internalize it. And so they generate disease within their own bodies, in some cases cancer, and people that really shouldn't have had it, but they were, they had this mentality that just twisted things around, and they ended up internalizing it, and it had effects. Why? Because we are a resonant body. We are creatures of a resonant essence. And so when our resonance is off, the body, which is the result of that, will also be off.
Yeah, and really that's why maintaining kind of that higher vibration that we talked about before really is key. Just as far as I mean, meditation is so important. Not buying into the propaganda and the bullshit. Not really paying attention to culture.
There was something when I was trying to do some research in my book. One of the parts of the energy transfers, because I can pretty much do it through the physics and quantum physics and everything else, and through Mike's diagram of how mass is affected. I can get how energy is propagated among things, but where that broke down was in chemistry and biology, because I wanted to make it tangible and real to our life, what we're living. There's a lot of woo-woo stuff out there, and I wanted something to be able to base the woo-woo on, because I know that the woo-woo is right, but since nobody can explain it, it ends up being woo-woo. Nobody believes it, and part of the healing process is actually believing it. It's called the placebo effect. Right? But you don't believe it if you don't have fundamentals. You have to be science behind it. And that's one of the things that I tried to do. And so in the middle of that, I was looking into chemistry. And since chemistry was the worst course, I mean, I loved physics, but chemistry in high school, I fucking sucked at. In biology, we were always dissecting the frogs and everything else. And the smell of formaldehyde was just a bit too much. So, I didn't pay that. And they always had these Latin names. And so it's like, oh God, remembering shit. Like he asked me, what was the name of the guy? I don't remember people's names.
Biology.
I'm lucky I remember Joey's names. Amun Raja is pretty cool, but Joey's tough. So, so there are names that sometimes don't go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too. But their lifestyle is also stressed out, Mud Rabbit. I mean, this is something that they've been implementing on humanity for the last couple of, or more than a dozen decades. You know, the stress levels of people have been going up through the roof since the 60s, you know, after they decided this thing had to be put into place.
Well,
And
and
so
this
they've made us more consumeristic. They put two people working so that we have more money available, which means that we spend more. But the more you spend, the more you need.
is
And
More.
this is something we talked about offline. Is there's a level that people have to encounter this, and it's whether it's immediate or whether you're looking at it in the government sense on what they're telling you and how to encounter this situation. And I think it's tackled in multiple situations when you're talking about the COVID situation. A lot of people have a different aspect about it because of what's been presented to them. If you don't,
propaganda of fear dominates every corner. I see it with my aunt. I see it with my mother. You can see the fear in their eyes. They fear for their life, and they fear for the lives of others around them. And so they will do anything they can to preserve the life of the others, even if that includes believing a lie.
When you engage people in fear, then that's all that they are, worried about. As you said, you're worried about running away from a lion before you sit down to worry about being sick. So,
but the thing is that you're worrying about the lion when in reality, there are ways to where the lion isn't a threat.
Yeah.
And that's when you're in higher resonance, but people aren't there yet. And so but they trust in the people that are lying to them because those people want them gone, unfortunately. And there are many things that we can't talk about on these platforms because they're part of the problem, but they're also part of the solution, because the solution is communication. We all understand each other. We all end up in the same resonance. And so when we're all on the same path and we're all going in generally the same direction, we have an ability to be able to feed off each other and build up on each other and make great things. When we're all like Mud Rabbit in the beginning of this conversation said, we're all canoes on a vast ocean. We're all going in different directions. That means nothing gets done. So if we're all going in the same direction, kind of like, unfortunately, one of the images that Marfugo News mentioned day before yesterday, the new D-Day, I believe was the title of that video, to where all these boats and ships were coordinated. And they could actually make blockades on everything. Mud Rabbit says, not to mention the psychological aspects of having your mouth covered, being silenced. Absolutely. It's also what they did to the slaves back in the day. It's also a satanic ritual, masking the face, standing 6 feet apart. It's the antisocial behavior. They want to destroy everything that society is about. And so that's what we need to understand. This is a deeper battle than just some kind of physical illness that is potentially dangerous, but hasn't proven itself to be as bad as many of the things that they have claimed that it could be like, or the things that I have heard that have been placed in it, which were actually worse. However, there are ways, and my president mentioned some things that could ease many of the symptoms and the problems associated with that particular illness.
You said
here in Brazil, they had something different that I hadn't heard about. And I liked my president's answer a lot more than theirs. But you know what? I started listening to theirs as well. And all of a sudden, we found out that what they're doing down here in Brazil, they also have a study in Italy and in Argentina that found, and now in India, which reduced mortality in 98%.
We need more perspective to know what you're talking about. You said my president. What did you mean by that?
Not the bought-off communist puppet that's in the place right now.
In whose place? Because you live in South America.
My soul's not here. My soul's in the same continent where you guys are at.
And that's where I was going. Is what are your political ties to the U.S. at this point?
None other than my family.
You have family living in Texas, right?
She just moved to Oklahoma, back home. But I also have other family living in Oklahoma. Grandmother and aunt. My other grandmother, my uncle is in Oklahoma. That's why my mom went back to Oklahoma.
But this brings me back to the point that I brought up to you before, is I wonder how much of this American politics is driving you down as a person, this negative energy or positive energy, whichever.
Problem is, it's not. I mean, if it were just normal day-to-day American politics, I'd take it just like I do normal everyday Brazilian politics. And Brazilian politics is full of corruption, and they call pizza, which they end up indicting them, but nothing gets found because too many people would go down, and so they end up whitewashing everything. So it's all garbage, and I don't watch it. And usually, in the majority of the times, I don't watch the majority of the American politics either. However, we are in a crucial time at this point to where decisions need to be necessarily made towards the future direction and survivability of our culture itself. This is not another 4-year election. No, they won't. Yes, and that will be a problem, and I've found that in mine. The ones that I got bases from, they took this thing, and I don't know how to deal with that other than to just ask him to find a solution outside of what these satanic bastards want to do to all of us.
It's so funny hearing all this with how liberal I am.
Without what?
With how liberal I am.
You're what?
In what sense?
Oh, I mean, I definitely am pro-choice.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
Always is.
I believe.
I'm not questioning your views.
Oh, I believe.
I'm not questioning your views. I'm just wondering what aspect are you looking at?
Politically speaking, I identify more so as a liberal than as a Q member.
What? What did you refer to me as?
Oh,
I'm gonna 100% interject and say that wasn't too off base.
He mentioned a certain letter. Is that what he mentioned?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Yes. But anyway,
Some of the facts that you reference often tend to come from a certain source.
where we go one, we go all.
That's Q saying.
That was on the boards. I don't know if it was his specifically, but it was on the boards. But it wasn't his saying. That was actually on JFK's boat.
So let me ask you, Mike. Who do you think Q is? If you had to define him as somebody.
First of all, this is something that can be also problematic because many of those things. The reason that I'm on Rumble is because many
I'll post this. I don't care. I'll post this. Your thoughts on who you think Q isn't important to YouTube.
I also don't even know what Rumble is, so.
You don't know what Rumble is?
No, I'm clueless. I live under a rock.
Okay. Well, a lot of the channels that I was listening to for news were banned from this platform for certain viewpoints and news that they were putting out. And so they were banned from many different sources, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and that sort of thing. And some other things were built up because of that. Some others already existed. BitChute already existed, and that ended up shooting up really high. My channel's on BitChute too, but it's really complicated, so I don't do much there. Minds was there. I've been on Minds for a very long time, but I had a little bit less movement on it. And so the guy on Tim Pool's channel that works with Minds for over a decade also interests me because I like Minds. It's just that when I was there wasn't very much movement and didn't hold my interest enough, but I think it's an excellent platform. However, Dan Bongino started a couple of things. One was shut down, but the other one actually stayed up, which is Rumble. And it's a good thing. It's a competition to YouTube. Now, the analytics aren't the same. The video processing abilities aren't the same, but the ability for you to stream videos, exactly the same. And I can find all the channels that weren't there before. freedom of choice, freedom of expression, and that sort of thing, which nowadays tends to lead more towards the right, because the left have freedom of expression wherever they want. You can spout your leftist agenda on any platform that they'll agree with you and bump you up. Okay, but the freedom of speech nowadays happens to represent, that which is against the communist regime.
Sure, it is. Yeah, it is definitely one side of the spectrum that is basically smiled at. And,
so that's how I eventually found Rumble, because I found out they were starting it up along with Parlay and others. Gab also started up at the same time. But Gab is more like Twitter, and Parlay was like Twitter, but Rumble was more like YouTube.
Okay.
So I posted my videos first on Rumble, because that's where, practically I before Jake's channel, I had gotten off of YouTube. The only reason that I got on YouTube was when Marfugel showed, their nightly things at his shows was coming on. Otherwise, all the people that I listened to were already on Rumble or Pill.net. And through Pill.net, they developed the Foxhole.app, which is great. I love that. And I'd love to be up on Foxhole. Somebody mentioned to you, Jake, that you ought to be up on Foxhole as well. And I would recommend it. I love Foxhole. It's a great idea. Now,
just kind of like a treasure trove of info.
No, but what it is, it's all live. It's kind of like DLive, but it's their own little community and that sort of thing. And then they've got good voices. And so if it's like turning on the TV, if you go onto Foxhole, you're always going to find somebody that's on live. So you always watch a live show, and you can watch the stream reruns of all the people that you wanted to watch before. It's not as complex and elaborate as all the others. But they're building it from the ground up. It's methods, doing it with a couple of other friends and whatever money they can scrounge up to put it together. So my kudos to them on the effort that they have to build yet another platform. So Foxhole.app, if anybody, go out there, tell them Pena Perspective or Michael De La Pena sent you out there. It won't get me anything, but maybe my name will be recognized by somebody eventually. But that being said, lots of things fell off of this this platform for many different reasons. So among those being the 17th letter of the alphabet. Okay. I'm in various different communities, and the reason that I agree with many of the things is because they actually put a little bit more detail to things that I already knew were possible, probable, and most likely, but not necessarily provable, because people have a tendency of committing suicide at the most opportune times on a repeated basis, and repeated witnesses and repeated people and police officers, like recently, that happen to know things that they shouldn't know. So yeah, let's get banned right from the onset, right, Jacob?
Go right into the what you're not supposed to talk about.
Yeah. So whenever you mention that particular letter, yeah, what can I do? I'm 5,000 miles away, but I feel
like there's a level that people are allowed to censor people. That's why I just put that up. Hashtag learn to code is what I just put up. And if people want to censor me on that,
were banned from Twitter for years for that.
For years.
Now they got more important things to deal with.
And I think
like
other people have addressed it and it made it more public. And I don't think you can get banned for things like that anymore. But I would love to push the boundaries and see.
Why? Because eventually it'll take your channel down. You find out what pushing the boundaries gets you. I'd like
to have an idea. I'd like to have an idea of where the boundaries are. So if you have to lay the boundaries out, that's fine.
Well, in that case, I can just blow the roof off this motherfucker, and we can just go down what the plan is to save the world.
What I meant by that. That's not what I meant.
You don't want to find out what the plan to save the world is and what phase we're in this 5D fucking chess game? Which is the next step, because I'm sorry. I've got a couple of friends of mine down here that they're making fun of me going, when I turn into a zombie, please cut my head off. And I'm like, I love you, man. You're my best friend. But when that happens, I have your permission, and trust me, I'll do it. Twitch and DLive. Yeah, DLive, Twitch I haven't been on. They've got things on there as well. Red Pill's on Twitch a lot. DLive, Marfugo's on DLive, but I don't know. I've got an account on DLive as well, but you always have to go live, and you can't publish videos that you've already done. It's a really bizarre thing. I couldn't actually get watching videos. I do that.
I have to be 100% before we go too far. We're 2 hours in on this one. If you have any
2 hours on the other one, which means we've already put in 4 hours.
I don't want you to yell at me later for dragging you.
It's completely my fault, and to tell you I've been fucking off all day too. So I'm a procrastinator, and it's my own goddamn problem, and it's a serious problem that I personally have because I prefer to enjoy life versus. You can always make an excuse. Everybody does. Governors and politicians have been doing it for centuries. And
I want to make sure you're not going to yell at me later because I kept you on.
I'll yell at you in 3 months when they finally decide to tell me I'm not getting any more checks because that's how much they are behind on their payment with me. So I'm about 4 months behind in payment. So I'll get this thing.
On what checks?
In about 4 months.
What checks have you not received payment from?
Let's see. I haven't invoiced April, May, June, and July, which I definitely haven't received because I have an invoice for them. And so they just paid January.
So let me give you a U.S. perspective.
I made $500, so thank you very much. I worked my ass off in January.
I haven't received any of the last, 3 stimulus checks that everybody's talking about.
What stimulus? I'm not talking about stimulus checks. I'm talking about actually work checks.
You talk about South America when it's applicable to South America, but when we're talking about politics, you talk about America. So I'm talking about America because that's where I actually live.
Yeah, but you're depending on a promise from the government. I mean, if I get a stimulus check, Ed, that'd be great, but I can't depend on it.
It's a promise from the government based on the pandemic we might be going through.
And you were supposed to get it. You didn't get it.
No, but see, the intention was for you to get it. Because from what I understand, people aren't going back to work because they have a cushy little unemployment benefit to stay home. From what I understand from various different channels, I might be wrong because after all, I'm not there. But that's what I understand.
I think it makes a difference.
However, I've also heard many of the channels that I talk to that they also never received any of those stimulus checks. So you wouldn't be among the only one.
Oh no, I definitely don't think I'm the only one. I think there's a lot of people that haven't, but I think there's a fallacy in the eyes of people that are in America that have received stimulus checks for any reason. I actually was motivated to work harder because I didn't receive my stimulus checks. I wasn't going to. The whole time during the lockdown and all of COVID, I had to keep working. I didn't have a unemployment to fall on. I didn't have anything like that to fall on because I'm a personal business owner that just became part of the market in the eyes of a business owner. So I literally had to do this from the ground up. And regardless of if I was going to get my stimulus or not, I still had to make money for my family. It's that immediate response that we've talked about in multiple chats before.
Yeah, because after all, we need to before we can reach the upper levels of the Maslow pyramid, you have to define the first level of the Maslow pyramid.
Yes.
Are you showing your shirt or what are you tilting the show?
No, I was adjusting something on my camera here. Sorry.
I thank God that I have the shitty ass fucking job that I have right now.
Pain.
Because before that school, the school that I was at closed down because they were paying their teachers too much and the students didn't want to pay that much. And there are lots of people deciding to do what I could do, which is teach English. doctors, they barely learned it, and they had their own versions of doing it. Fine, they were willing to do it cheaper than I was. Okay, so the school closed down. So I spent a good year looking for different stuff. Schools are nowadays are paying less than I pay my maid, to be honest with you.
What was that?
And yeah, that's the whole thing. So all of a sudden, I get this call out of the blue about somebody that I don't even respect that much, but I corrected a lot of the shit that he actually translated because I was working on a patent for another person. So this person calls me up and says, "Hey, don't you think about doing translations?" And I'm like, "Yeah, kind of, sort of. You know, it's some work, you know, a lot of work at one point and no work later on and that sort of thing, but whatever." So he told me about this guy, and I gave him a call, and I ended up getting the job, and I've been doing it now for 2 years during the crisis. So when everybody else was either out of work because they, you know, worked at a factory or whatever, and they couldn't be there, I all of a sudden had work, and I could work from my computer from home, which really made the COVID lockdowns a lot easier for everybody, including myself. So I really haven't suffered from this, but I can only give thanks to God that I got this call from somebody that I don't even like, offering me an opportunity that was there. And so I'm still in it. Though this week they dumped a bunch of stuff on me that I maybe by Monday I'll be able to finish everything. Hopefully, if I actually decide to put the nose to the grindstone. And
Back in the back when the days of COVID hit, I was actually a utility locator, and it got so much more busy because everybody was at home, and all the homeowners wanted to like dig all these holes at home and shit. Everybody wanted to garden and plant trees, and
they're paying attention to their homestead again.
yeah, exactly.
Before, like I was talking about with that doctor, that they have this $1 million mansion, but basically it's a hotel room because they only go to the bedroom to sleep and then they go off to work. And so this entire huge infrastructure is never appreciated, never used. Now the people are stuck at home. Well, now they need to improve that which they had forgotten about.
Yes.
So they focus on the things that they just left behind.
Yep. But that being said,
Mud Rabbit, thank you very much. We're on the same page, but hopefully the storm is here, and hopefully this will be over soon. My president mentioned to a bunch of women this week that he's got some good news. We've also got Arizona coming out, and lots of other things going on. So, yeah, but all this pushes the limits that Jake doesn't like to touch on.
Yeah, it does.
But thank you, Mud Rabbit. Yeah, we're on the same page, Mud Rabbit. Thank you very much. Where we go one, we go all. That was written on the bell that was on JFK's boat, which is the reason why this particular movement has that, because we're seeking, they will delete the channel for that. And that's why I try not to touch on that, even though I'm egged on to that. Okay. And I'm all in. However, they really don't like this stuff. They like this stuff less than they like Hunter's laptop. You know, those are things that they seriously go after. Why? Because they feel it as a threat. So whenever a bully feels a threat, he hits. That's what they do. Because if it weren't a threat, they wouldn't pay attention to it. So it's like they say frequently, they're flying over the target. And so you get a lot of flack when you're really over the target. But we can't talk about that thing because the CCP doesn't allow people to actually express their opinions freely, because that means that they lose complete control. And considering that the social control system that was implemented on the most populous country in the planet was developed by a website that is now a verb. When we want to search for things, we use this particular website's name as a verb in order to search for things on the internet. And they developed the system for China, and they would like to be able to implement that same system everywhere because they consider it really, really efficient. And it's a great control program.
Sure. Are you talking about like things like facial recognition, or what are you referring to?
I'm talking about the social credit score that they have.
Oh yeah, that's pretty gross when you look
Yeah.
at this.
The social credit score was developed by Google.
Of course.
They would love to put that into effect completely here because it's effective. It's an excellent form of control. And all they want and all they look for is control. Why? Because what God gave us was free will. And what the adversary wants to take the entire time is to take away our free will, to control us. So whenever you find people that want to control you, think that's negative energy. So whenever people want the best for you and it's advice, you can take it if you want. It's your choice because it's your life. There they are respecting your free will. And that is what our Father expects.
Following what
We
resonates
impose
with
our will on others. And what these dictators are doing is that they are imposing their will. Why? Because they don't follow the Father. They follow the father of lies, who was a murderer from the day he was created. So these people have no qualms and everything else. And Amun Raja is really enjoying his artwork. What do you see developing in the middle of that, or is it still breathing? No, wait. Breathing was your thing, Jake. Sorry. Amun, tell me, it's got to be vibrating or glowing in some kind of aspect.
It just has this sort of radiating.
That's what I was looking. Radiating. See, there are different effects. Each one has. Yours was breathing. My hoodie was breathing, and his isn't breathing. It's radiating.
Let me be honest. I told you your hoodie was dancing at the time.
Dancing.
And that was because I was on lysothurgic acid, and that I feel like visual wise, that has its own different aspects. I feel like each thing has its own different visuals that accommodate to the specific hallucinogen in mind.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's very well. They're different molecules, and they affect the brain in different specific ways. And
what are you getting visual wise? What are you drawing from the situation you're in?
So it's very, very.
He's hearing sound. He's seeing sounds and he's hearing lights.
Yeah, essentially, it's like being washed with all the senses. You know, it's like
all essence of existence is coalescing into one reality.
Yes, it feels kind of like a beautiful rapture. You know, but yeah, I'm listening to the insects outside my window.
And it's always good to be with friends when you're with that, because that's the positive influence that you want whenever you're opening those portals.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, something that's uplifting, supportive.
So I'm glad I can help you not have a bad trip. Always a good thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that I am actually like very comfortable with exploring solo. I do it pretty frequently.
Problem is the black cats in the shadows really freak me out, man.
I feel you. You know what? My last experience on mushrooms, I actually felt the presence of this spiritual entity, and in my vision, sort of was like holding hands with me. It was very comforting, but then the energy began to shift in a way that I didn't really like, and it began to feel less reassuring and more like of a sexual kind of thing. And I wasn't really down with that. I didn't want that.
Those are the energies that try to interject. However, we got Divine Tiffany and Mud Rabbit are signing off. Is that it? So I'd like to say goodnight to them
Oh,
and make sure that they know that they are appreciated and everything else. Thank you very much, Tiffany. Thank you very much, Mud Rabbit.
thanks for watching.
We always appreciate your presence here.
I really would love to benefit from the tarot reading in the future.
Yeah, she said Tiffany, as long as she's feeling up to health wise, she's gonna definitely do it on our next live for us.
Well, I'll be thinking hopefully that happens. Looking forward to that.
She said, "I will leave this running and appreciate you all." Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tiffany. We appreciate it as well.
Thank you very much. Have a good night and be well. I know that you were feeling kind of under the weather, so I hope you're feeling better. Definitely. All right. Lots of fruit juice, mangoes, avocados, most definitely. Those should elevate your pH levels, and the majority of sicknesses have a tendency of diminishing when your pH levels are higher, regardless of what virus it is. Viruses exist in acidic environments. So the more alkaline your body is, the less they can propagate.
If
So
you're able to get something like an elderberry syrup or even elderberry gummies, it's really good. It's a high source of antioxidants, which will flush your
people
system.
have mentioned elderberry as well.
Yeah, it's
I didn't know that one, but it sounds pretty good as well. So cool.
Yeah, it and not to mention, it's actually delicious if you make the elderberry syrup at home. And I have personally benefited from feeling like I was about to get sick, and then having this elderberry syrup, and like the next day feeling totally fine. Like, okay. So
Lots of people have mentioned the elderberries as being excellent for that. Thanks, Tiffany. Yeah, pH levels important. We don't pay attention to that. The reason I found out about pH levels is because of Dr. Bruce Lipton. Okay, he's one that you can actually look up. But he was talking about, because he was a cellular biologist. So he was studying the actions of cells that seemed like they had their own brain, their own consciousness. And so he was trying to figure out how cells did what they did. And he later on found out the cells react to the environment that they're in, and they react more specifically. The environment they're in is your blood. And he found out more specifically they reacted depending on the levels of acidity, the pH levels in the blood. Whenever the pH levels were more acidic, lower pH levels, they ended up accumulating and creating blockages and everything else. This is a defensive posture that they take on. The cells themselves do that. Whenever they are in a pH level which is higher, more alkaline pH level, and I finally defined that higher and lower this week. So now I can actually say that, yes, higher is an alkaline level. Lower pH levels are more acidic. You want to get fruits and vegetables that are high pH. Avocados being like 13 pH and something like lemons being 8.3 pH, and then you've got mangoes which are like 8.3, then you got something that's 9. So the fruit oranges might actually be a 9.3 pH. I need to double check that.
So I'm gonna check where grapefruit's at. Grapefruit's up there.
We got
man, you're talking about all this stuff. I need to go get some fruit.
That's
the fruit stuff.
That citrus drive at the moment is probably beautiful.
Oh,
I mean, I don't know how you don't have an orange juice on hand or a pineapple juice or
You got to, because where you're, but see, that's it's the vitamin C in the orange juice that actually kicks off your preference, Jacob. What Amun Raj is needing is more like a chocolate smoothie.
yes, I feel you on that chocolate smoothie. Because actually in the tea I added a shit ton of lemon juice. I mean, it's like half lemon juice. So,
Well, that will be good for your health as well.
yeah,
But anyway, I wanted to get back to Dr. Lipton. Whenever the pH levels are higher, it's alkaline. The cells go into the growth mode. Instead of a defensive mode, they go into a growth mode. So either they're defending against some kind of threat, or they're expanding to eat and grow and continue their process, which we consider life and survival. And so he noticed that they reacted to those, and that's where we get into your stress levels reduce your pH levels. They make you more acidic. That's why people also have problems with their liver. Whenever people are extremely angry all the time, and even if they internalize that, my sister-in-law died of liver cancer. Why? Because she seemed to be a happy person, but she was extremely resentful in many things. And so she internalized that thing because she didn't want to externalize, but she didn't change the way she thought about things. So even though she externalized only nice things, you could tell from times that she would be really snippy because that dark internal that she kept trying to hide, she hadn't changed who her essence was. She had just changed the external mask of her essence. And the internal essence ended up causing problems with internally for her. So smoothies are always good, even if you're not tripping. I'd love me a smoothie at this point, but at 3 o'clock in the morning in Brazil, that ain't going to work. What happens, we internalize that negative energy and it has to go somewhere. Now, since the liver processes so many things, I remember my grandmother telling me, you can't be angry because it's going to do your liver damage. Okay, now how does my grandmother, who doesn't know the physics and medicine that I do, telling me that being angry is going to mess with my physics? That sounds like a bunch of woo-woo. But now we're figuring out that woo-woo actually has some meaning to it. It ain't so damn woo-woo. We just didn't understand the woo-woo. I'm trying to understand the woo-woo and telling you that it ain't woo-woo. It works. I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you. Please consult your physician, which will tell you exactly what the CDC guidelines are, and you are now more of a part of the system than you ever were before. With that caveat in mind, remember the platform that we're still on. Still on, thank you, because we actually are tiptoeing around the tulips. Definitely. We're tiptoeing pretty damn close to that edge, and you keep pushing it closer to that edge with that hashtag.
That's a beautiful phrase, though.
We always got to learn new things. And so I wanted to learn about biology from Dr. Bruce Lipton. And lots of information, lots of good information there. And you find out the majority of illnesses. Whenever I saw the images of the cells in a negative pH in a more acidic environment, it reminded me of another video that I had seen of a guy. I only saw 2 videos of his, but he was working with magnets and electromagnetism and that sort of thing. And so he was talking about how they can increase their potency whenever you line them up in series and that sort of thing. You can actually make small magnets into a larger magnetic field, and you can induce that magnetic field into an electric current. So that was a whole nother rabbit hole that I was diving down into. But the fact is that he mentioned that whenever you grab all those magnets that are in series and you crumple them up and put them in your hand and you toss them down, you try and measure the magnetic field around them, it's broken down. It's almost non-existent because they all cancel each other out. And if you see the formation of these magnets as they're clumped up together in all their different ways, it's very similar to what I saw as the cell structure or the inside diseased cells. All of a sudden, I'm like, holy crap, their magnetic field isn't flowing. They're clumped up. They're not building up. Their resonance is different. So that's where I got that idea from. What's happening in the magnetic universe with magnets and everything else is very similar to what happens in our biological universe under different aspects. This is electromagnetism and this is pH levels. And that's what I learned out in biology. Yeah, we've got chemistry, everything's on electrons and everything else. But once you get into biology, it's a little bit different. And that's what I wanted to learn. So yeah, pH levels is one of the ways that energy is passed throughout the body. Okay, so for example, the ocean is excellent transmitter of current. We have currents because the salty ocean helps transmit the temperatures more freely.
Water is actually not a good conductor of electricity. It's the
water without salt is an is not a good conductor at all. That's why whenever the salt content is reduced in parts of the ocean, the flow of those currents and those temperature eddies, because normally what you have is warm water from the bottom will go up and cold water from the top will go down. And that mixing causes those flows that we have throughout the planet that allows certain areas to remain temperate when in reality they would be in nearly Arctic zones, thinking of Europe in that case, or the northwest of the United States as another case. Seattle isn't as cold as New York, even though it's the same latitude, because it has this wave of temperature energy that's transferred through the oceans from Asia all the way there. And it goes in that fashion. But as we've had more water getting into the ocean, those currents are broken down. And that's where we see the shift in things. In fact, Perth, which was a huge producer of wheat in Australia, now has droughts because the rain that used to fall on them shifted southwards is now falling on the ocean instead of on the land where it actually has a benefit. So in that same way, our body, when we reduce the pH levels, it's like that same situation. Things don't flow. When we increase the pH levels, things actually flow, and energy and everything has to flow. Otherwise, you're diseased.
Yes.
At least what I've been able to see or find over the years. I might be full of shit, because after all, who the fuck am I?
I feel like we're all just navigating through this universe and what we have in front of us. We all are dealing with our own personal realities and our own personal truths, and we can only develop an understanding of what we've individually been through. So without that, I mean, I don't know.
We can gain from the experiences of others as well, because if we only learn about the things that we've been involved in,
but basing any conclusion on others' experiences, do you actually have that understanding?
It helps you reach a better understanding. It doesn't necessarily give you the understanding. The director of Jeep in Mexico City, it was 65. He was talking to my dad, who was 32 at the time, and I was 12. So my dad tells me this story like as if, he's telling it to me for the first time. I was there when the old guy told it to us. He said life forgives everything up until the age of 30. Later on, my dad changed it to 35, but that's okay. And he says, after that, it charges you in double. And for years, I'm like, what is this old man crazy old man talking about? But yeah, when you're in your 20s, you can still do stupid shit that people are going, yeah, but he'll learn, he'll be better. If you're 40 and doing stupid shit, people aren't going to cut you any slack because you should know better by then. At that point, you've got others that are depending on you. You should be producing more than what you were in your 20s because nobody's depending on you in your 20s. In your 40s, you got lots of people that are going to be depending on you. And so the stupid bullshit that you do in your 40s has a greater impact on those around you than the stupid shit you do in your 20s when nobody fucking depends on you. Okay, so the world requires more from you as you get older. Now, why that number is 30? I don't know. Maybe 33 is the age when Jesus was actually crucified. So everything before then we take with a grain of salt, and everything after that you should fucking know better. Or maybe it's other aspects that are due to hormones and energy levels and professional realities and responsibilities. You can put all kinds of reasons behind those particular numbers. But unfortunately, you get out of college at the age of 23. You start working, you're an intern for the next year and a half or so. So we're talking about 25 before you have any kind of real significance in your work area. After that, you spend the next 5 years trying
to understanding in general. I feel like you're still at 25 being introduced to the world as a whole.
Well, actually, at 25, your frontal cortex actually finally develops.
Your
so you have better logic skills after 25.
your frontal cortex and that development has nothing to do with what you've been exposed to in your life. Yes, your brain development decides at that point when it's going to reach its max state, but I feel like you can still learn more. You can still obtain more knowledge. It's just
I never said that you don't learn, so you actually process things better.
People can choose to limit themselves at that point when they say 25 is the age where you stop developing brain matter in general, because that's what it is. You actually stop your brain stops growth at that point.
But I always told myself that I was going to stop smoking at 28.
But what you store in that brain. But what you store in that brain can develop over time. There's still more knowledge that can be obtained inside of that same hard drive that you have.
Yeah. But then we have another end limit, which is Biden, which shows us exactly that he can't even process what he has, much less learn anything new.
So what road are we going down here?
There are phases in our lives to where we can be productive and useful in society, and there are other phases when we should be.
Do you think ever talking about Biden in an intellectual context is ever going to take you on a positive road?
Talking about Biden in any context will never take you down a positive road.
Exactly.
But I was just using that as a reference to where, the brain has an ability to learn up into a point. I could use the old Pope John Paul, because when he reached a certain point,
that would be a more appropriate one for YouTube.
I love John Paul. I thought he was one of the best popes, but he was a pope when I was alive. Benedict Arnold, not so much. So it's not it's not the position, it's the man. It's what they were saying.
Yeah,
that they were
it's
doing.
not necessarily the position or the man as much as the requirements that are placed on the man and the position.
Well, see, the requirements should be the same.
Well, yes and no. I believe that the Pope has different requirements than the president does.
No, but I'm talking about the old Pope. And then the Pope that retired and still didn't die, and then we got the Benedict Arnold.
I think we could have a lot of fun talking about this on YouTube, and I think it would not be demonetized. What do you think of the current Pope compared to other popes, especially in their views when it comes to alien civilizations and their view on the Bible?
Do you mean the Marxist traitor, Antichrist, false prophet?
I mean the current Pope. How you refer to him?
Yeah, that's the guy I'm talking about.
That's your own opinion.
They always are.
Exactly. Well, I mean, and that's what everybody has with the current Pope is their own opinion on him and how he reflects his beliefs into the world as
my opinion is that he's a Marxist. He wants.
Well, I mean, think about the position of the Pope as being this position in Christianity and religion in general that is an idolized figure. So you're an idolized figure that's already going against
corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely.
So you're already going against the ideology of your religion and the whole.
How am I going against the ideology? First of all, Catholicism.
Any type of religion that puts a religious figure on high over Jesus or God.
Yep, and that's wrong right in itself.
That they're not fulfilling their prophecy.
Absolutely. The fact that he says that he is the vicar of Christ, which means that he is the stand-in for Christ. No, nobody is Christ, and nobody can stand in for him, and we don't need a stand-in because that's why he sent the Holy Spirit. So right there, that they're trying to aggrandize themselves, and that is emblematic of the empire that created that idea. Okay, because it was all established in 300 AD in the Nicene Creed when they said, "Okay, everybody's got all these different ideas."
When do you think Catholicism as a whole took that switch?
Ooh, well, I'd say Catholicism as a whole took that twitch when it started, because it was already started on corrupted foundations. They were trying to democratize the word.
Well, and this is. Do you remember the original question? So I have two original questions that I asked you when I originally met you, and one had to do with John Locke, and the other had to do with your perception of Mary Magdalene and how
your first one wasn't about John Locke; it was about Lot.
Yeah, John Lot. I
No,
confused.
no, John. His first name was Lot.
What I'm saying is, just like we
referenced, it was written about in the book of John.
Just like we referenced in the first time I brought this up, I often get their names confused, and I'm referring to the story of Sodom and Gomorrah when God put this man on high, whatever his name happens to be in the biblical form, for putting his daughters up to be raped over angels. That's specifically the person I'm talking to. There's only one story that references that man, and you know exactly what.
He wasn't doing it for God. He was doing it because that was the tradition and culture.
His reasoning has nothing to do with what I was saying. When you know exactly
he was
what
trying to bribe the guys to not rape the angels.
But you knew exactly what story I was talking about.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, and then the other depiction that I make is between how people depict Mary Magdalene, if she was in some people's eyes, a whore, and she was a bad person because of her lifestyle, regardless of her following Jesus after that. And people like to point out to me that she was a whore, regardless of her lifestyle, and if she found Jesus before everybody else that happened to pick up the Bible.
First of all, she is the last name Magdalene is because she came from a town called Magdala, which was known explicitly for having a very high prostitution rate. But that would be akin to me saying, I'm John from San Francisco. John from San Francisco, then that means that you must do what people in San Francisco generally do. Does that mean that you prefer that which people in San Francisco? No.
Before you get down that road,
Magdalene came from that area. It doesn't mean that she was one. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
She was coming from a certain area that was.
I agree with you.
That doesn't mean she was.
I agree with you. Before you get down that road about what she was and what society depicted her as, is that relevant to her story?
Jesus still cast 7 demons out from her, and because of the lack of that torture that was constant. And what happened? He made her mind open up and release those spirits that were holding her back. Those spirits that were telling her that you need to do this obscene thing or that other bad thing, or these people don't like you, or you're not worthless, or you can't do anything because you can't ever get above where you were born. And so all those demons were just harassing her. And Jesus told her, look, forget about all that. Look at me. Come. And she was cured. And because of that, she opened up, and she was always so grateful because she had these things that were tormenting her taken away. And none of the other disciples had that amount of torment in them. So they don't understand the amount of suffering that she already went through before she was given the grace of God. The others were already living their normal lives. They were fishermen and everything else. The grace of God was given to them, and they could have gone. But even Peter denied 3 times. So it's not where we come from, and it's not necessarily where we're supposed to be going.
So
it's about the message that we hear and whether we accept it or not.
So with my source of this question, before we got down the eyes of Mary Magdalene, at what point is it okay to accept a pope as the answer in a religion?
It wouldn't be.
What was that?
It wouldn't be.
I can't hear you. I don't know if it's because you're too far.
It would not be. He is not the end all be all. You cannot place one on top. Now, what he originally was supposed to be is somebody who knows the thing, somebody who can tell others, what the word actually means. But what it became was this power center, this concentration of power to where he could decide who could be king and who couldn't. That's not something that he decides. It's something that the Father decides. Okay. So they took it upon themselves to be God on this planet. And that is one of the endemic problems of that. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And they had absolute power for a very long time. Now, power on this earth and on this reality comes from whom? When Jesus was being tempted in the desert, the last temptation that he was given, he was placed on top of a mountain, and the adversary pointed to everything and said, everything that you see can be yours if you just kneel down and worship me. Now, how could the adversary say that if he didn't have the power over all the things that he saw? Which meant that when those who from the heavens came here, they ended up propagating their power centers over those thousands to where the influences of this world influence people on a complete and utter basis. And until we are able to extract ourselves from this world, this material world, we can't really see how much his influence really is until we go back to certain origins and we realize, holy crap, I was doing that. I was listening to, I was singing that, and I was eating that. What was I eating? What was I thinking?
Well, does it come down to not understanding the meaning of it or the interpretation of it at the time?
Repeat that.
Does it come down to the meaning of it or the interpretation of it at the time?
Depends on their heart when they were developing, and their heart was being influenced by a power-hungry emperor who knew how to consolidate power and knew how to maintain power over a very vast empire. And he wanted one religion that he could impose on everyone else that also included some of his personal ideas on Mithrilism. Okay, because that particular Roman emperor happened to like Mithra. So many things were, and they had to adopt many things to please Trojans and Greeks, which is a saying in Spanish, you can't please both. Either Trojans hate the Greeks and the Greeks hate the Trojans. They destroyed each other after all. But the Catholic Church, the universal church, because Catholic actually means universal. So the universal church actually tried to please everybody. And they did a good job, because in Mexico, you've got many Catholic churches that don't have a single cross or reference to Jesus in them. Because in their societies and their culture that was taken over by the monks, they were able to transfer the identity of their pagan divinities, their pantheon of divinities, into the pantheon of saints that were available to them to choose from. And so they just transferred one item of worship to another, when in reality it is, and nowadays they're trying to transfer it to Gaia. The earth is our goddess. We are supposed to protect the earth, so much so that I have the forest that I do. But that is not our God. Our God tells us to protect her. So yeah, I'm not saying that Gaia isn't real. Gaia is real. It is in essence. Our earth is alive, and we do need to protect her. Absolutely. But because that is our calling, not because she is the one who made us. No, she's not our goddess. We are the ones who are supposed to take care of her. We are placed here as shepherds, as people to be able to protect and expand and benefit that which the Creator made for us and all who came before or after.
This is where I see the duality between being both born of and caretaking. It's sort of like,
there's a phrase that I like to reference, that you're not, I am in this world, I am not of this world. I'm not from this world. I'm in this world. It's different. My spirit is in this reality. It doesn't mean I'm from this reality. And while I am in this reality, I will take the best care of this reality that I can, because that is a responsibility that was placed on me by my Father, my Creator. We are here and we are to take care of others. We take care of ourselves, but that's not the main purpose. We're taken care of by He who made us. We need to take care of others. That's why we need to be strong. That's why we need to be able to be self-sufficient, so that we can have enough left over to be able to help others, instead of having to request assistance from everyone else to continue existing. And I know I'm a hypocrite when I say that, because I depend on like 5 different people to just exist. So yeah, I'm a hypocrite. However,
Y'all are, though, in certain ways. But hey, my brothers.
I agree with Joey. We all are in certain ways.
In certain
But Joey, expand on what you were saying.
I was actually just gonna say I'm probably gonna head off to sleep here in a moment. I'm gonna lay down and enjoy the rest of this little journey that I began, and I think it's about time for me to.
well, Jake, can I say the phrase that I said in the beginning? It was a little bit too early in the beginning, but now I think it's about appropriate, isn't it, Amun Raja?
We don't know what put it into context.
Well, now he just might be getting close to tripping balls.
I think that we're just about there. Yeah, I've been really appreciating there's a lot of things going on.
It's the resonance of that purple light really does get a good vibe going.
Very good.
It's better than the bright lights here, because it's more an essence that allows you to simply integrate into things, meld into reality.
It doesn't
a little bit more mellow
in any way. And also, just the visuals I've been experiencing are very, very higher of the higher realm. I've had like a lot of like interesting like feathering, and like I saw this beautiful like winged, as you were talking, I saw like this cool winged throne. It's like, that's pretty fucking
where did you see it?
In my inner visuals with my eyes closed.
I thought maybe it was flying around here.
No,
that would be cool.
No, wait.
If you could see somebody who was here.
Penna,
you only see things that are around you.
I have to ask you, did you happen to see a couple of people in the comments have referenced the falling satellite or UFO, if you will, that went behind you and Junior during our broadcast?
That was interesting. I need to go back to that one and look at
there's
that.
There's a direct time cue on it, and you can see it falling from the sky behind you guys. So if you get a chance, check it out. There's a light falling from the sky, and we have it time cued on the video we did.
That would be interesting. We had remember that particular day. We also had a transformer explode.
There was a lot going on, but it definitely wasn't that.
It wasn't that. All right, I'll have to look at that video and find out a little bit better. But Amun Raja's getting tired down here. It is 3:30 a.m. and I was only going to listen in the background today, wasn't I?
You can't hold back. Don't give me that.
You can't.
I can't. If I'm on, I'm talking. I mean, that's just. I mean, Junior even told you. All you have to do is release a couple of words, and boom, I'm off to the races. But we'll end it here on live. I got to talk to Amun Raja offline. He can't run away from me. I have a video for Joey that he's got to watch. So hopefully we'll see it offline. Before you cut off right now, I got to see that book one more time.
The last reference that I'm going to give is Speechless by Michael Knowles. And if anybody gets a chance, like I said, Daily Wire just reached out to me they're finally responding to all of the big tech.
You're gonna have to do a video just you reading the book. You'll do a couple of videos just reading the book because I haven't read it and I want it and I don't have an access to it. So all of a sudden you can read it on. I don't know if they'll like that because then all of a sudden you'll make it public. That might not be.
No. I think as long as you give context, I think it's appropriate. So
I think it is as well.
Well, then that's you got enough subject matter for the next 2 months. 300 some odd pages. I'm sure they can give you content for a good amount of time. And I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about Knowles's his perspective on Tim Pool. It was good to actually listen to his live banter, not something that was pre-prepared like we usually see on his posts on Daily Wire. His logic is excellent. I like it. He's very founded. He's a lot more conservative than I am, and over on the Daily Wire, they have shown that. My son once asked me, but how can you be listening to Ben Shapiro? I thought you didn't like him. I don't agree with some of the things that he mentions, but now that the further I've been getting, and I've gotten a lot more conservative over the last 2 or 3 years, most definitely. And so a lot of the things I actually happen to understand, not necessarily agree with in everything, but understand where he's coming to because his debates and arguments and everything else.
You can hear a man and understand his point. I mean, while I was saying I identify more liberally, that's not to say that I don't totally hear these conservative points of view. And sometimes I could say, well, I could be identified as a conservative. And this is why I have a general dislike for politics and I tend to drop out. I start to get caught up in them and then I get angry and I say, you know what? Fuck it.
Yeah, and that happens a lot, and that's why our voice is shut down, and that's why we let the squeaky wheel rule everything. And they know that very well, which is why they constantly attack, and we lose our rights and our privileges every year that we don't fight back.
That's the general consensus that I've gotten with most of my guests is I've had some guests that like Ben Shapiro. I've had some that don't like him. And at the same time, I don't push my views on anyone. The only thing I do is try to understand why they feel the way they do. I've always had the understanding, whether it was Donald Trump, whether it was anyone else, you should never fully follow any politician because no one 100% agrees with what you agree with.
Well, it's the same.
I don't think you can find that in human characteristics.
Yeah. It's the same with any teacher or any guru. You know, you can never 100% truly identify with them and their
question. I had a teacher that I respect a lot. Actually, I was going to reference my math teacher in algebra and trigonometry, but then again, I decided better to reference my physics teacher. He taught me about lasers and everything else. He's the one who introduced me to Richard Feynman and Stephen Hawking's book I read when I was in my physics class, in his physics class. And no matter how much I respect Professor Taylor probably won't even remember who the fuck I am because I was probably one of the worst of his students. Even though I got pretty damn good grades in most everything I did, I wasn't that complete physics nerd, and I had my own issues that society didn't appreciate back at that time. So even though I consider him my teacher and he taught me a lot, that does not necessarily mean that I will agree with absolutely everything he says and that he will be the end-all, be-all for my existence. He taught me what I needed in the subjects that he could teach me about. That doesn't make him my guru or end-all, be-all, and that's the thing that we can't do. We can't put one or a couple of people up there on pedestals and say, oh, that's exactly who I want to be like, and I'm going to follow every word they say and do it. No. We've got one that we already need to do that for. And his red words in certain Bibles tell you exactly what he's talking about and what he needs, and it's all love and it's all compassion. Now, does that mean that he didn't flip over tables and Yeah, he did
His
that.
voice is gone. Where are
They
you?
were
far away.
exchanging money. Do what?
You were too far away. We didn't pick up the last part.
He's way far away, and it's got nothing to do with the microphone. But yeah, he's
No, you personally, you were too far away. I don't know if it was your tone because you're far away, or if it was because what. But depending on how
yeah.
far you are away from the microphone, we can't pick you up audio.
Well, it's really bizarre. Sometimes I just kind of drone off and kind of start to mumble and things don't really. That's just, I get deeper and I forget that I need to make sure that everybody hears and understands clearly and succinctly. And I get deeper into thoughts and I start to go down. Or it could be the microphone starting to bug out. My computer's a little bit old too. So anybody watching this later on wants to donate for a new computer for Mike, hey, I'm always here for you. Anyway, the thing, do what?
I said I feel you. Like any donations are most welcome.
Hey, I will set up a wallet I will set up a Bitcoin wallet definitely just for this channel. I guarantee you. That's in the works. Maybe in the next couple of months I'll be able to do that. But one of the things that I wanted to focus on in this answering this question, we can't put gurus as the end all be all.
No.
They're teachers. They're ones that show us the next couple of steps that we have to take in our life,
But
not the ultimate destination.
If you idolize them, that's an attachment.
That is where the problem lies. We cannot idolize them. We take their teachings, we take their understanding, and we add that to ours, and we follow our own journey. Now, hopefully, our own journey leads us back to the Father. Nobody comes to the Father except through me, saith the Lord Jesus Christ. There's one way. There's a big ass gate. It's going to be really easy to get through, and most people are going to go through that. And that's the same trail that the lemmings take. And unfortunately, it's jumping off a cliff into boiling hot vat of lava. And there's another gate which is smaller and more difficult to get to. And therein is the gate to life, peace, and the prosperity of the soul. And that is Jesus Christ, the truth, the life, and the way. Why? Because he's the only one who actually sacrificed for us. Buddha teaches us lots of things, and I've learned lots of things from Buddhism about how to allow the world to go around you, because it is all a virtual reality matrix anyway. And so if we don't interact with it, it won't interact with us. And that's one thing that he basically proved in many of his different journeys. But he didn't sacrifice himself for us. He found a higher way to himself be illuminated. That doesn't mean he paid off his own debts. That means that he finally found the way where we should all try and be. But that means that we weren't born that way. And everything we did from the point that we were born until that point has to be paid back in some way, shape, or form. Therein is where the only one who sacrificed himself for us comes in. Everybody else sacrificed many things in their lives for themselves, for their own awareness, for their own growth, for their own spiritual growth, for their own understanding and deeper comprehension of the existence that is this holographic multiverse, quantum multiverse that we are living in. One gave up his life for us. The only one said, I did it right from the beginning. I'm still going to go, but I want as many that I can to come up along with me because I paid their debt. All they have to do is say thank you and come back home. It's that simple. And yet people don't do that. They fight tooth and nail to not do that. do everything they can to denigrate and destroy he who has paid your credit card debt. And that's what I'm not understanding right now. Why so many people are simply, that's not true because, Zeus paid my debts. Really? What did Zeus do for you? If somebody's willing to pay off your credit card debt, I'd say thank you. That's the only thing I got to say.
I
And
didn't
then
ask him to do that.
you did when you fucked up. But if you're not willing to accept the gift,
I agree with
that's
Joey.
okay.
I agree with Joey. That's the common perspective is that no one asked you for this favor. So should we be in gratitude because you did this favor for us?
Well, see, that's the thing. If you don't want the gift, that's fine. Earn it on your own. The problem is that you're not going to, and he loves you, and he doesn't want you to suffer. It's like your kid not wearing a helmet on his or knee pads when they go out on the skateboard. They're going to need knee pads because no matter how often you're on that skateboard, you're going to fall down. Why? Because that's part of being on a fucking skateboard. It happens. You see 20 kids do the same thing, you're going to assume your kid's going to have the same thing. So you tell your kid, wear knee pads. Why? Because your knees are important. You appreciate your knees when you're older, and they usually get destroyed when you're young and dumb. And so, hey, wear the freaking knee pads. They'll help. Do they wear the knee pads? Nah, my stuffy old dad told me to wear knee pads. I'm not going to wear knee pads. And so they go on and they keep hitting and hitting and hitting. And eventually, they got problems with their knees.
And
That's
now
what.
now I'm at the point as a longboarder, as I was saying earlier, I'm almost fucking 30, and I'm about to go out and buy some elbow pads for real because I'm tired of busting ass and rolling and getting all this road rash on my elbow. It sucks. So I'm over it.
With that, guys, we're at about
3 hours, 3:06 on this one.
3:06 on the second half. So we'll end out on the live, and we'll get back.
I think 5 hours is good for today, right, Jake?
That's a good standard.
It's a little bad. It seems
Thank you, everybody, for tuning
standard.
in. Thank you, Penitent Perspective, and thank you, Jody, for tuning in. I appreciate you guys jumping in.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really nice stream, and I enjoyed hearing the Pena perspective.
Oh yeah, and Pena, we brought you into this stream thinking we were going to be able
in
to
the background because I was going to be working.
Yeah, but there's no holding you back. So
I can't. I simply cannot. However, mine is Thursday nights. I enjoyed Monday and Tuesday when Joey and I were able to talk and spread that thing out. So I'm sure it's not going to be a whole week before you see me again.
Oh yeah, no, we don't try to put you off till Thursday. If we can get you in earlier than that, we always love to.
I'm here for you, Jake, anytime you need. Joey, nice to know you're part of the family. So
yeah, I love
welcome out, Trippy Bro.
Oh yeah, it's super good vibes. It's quite incredible.
Well, everybody enjoy your night, and we'll get back to you soon and let